Rebecca leaned back against the railing, her eyes bright with a decision she had already made. Then a sound like a stone dropping, and the sea closed over her. They searched for a month. The body was never found, and she was declared dead. The heroine of the dark novel was gone before the story ever started. But it begins a month earlier. 3 ruined men fought and bled over that heroine. Every one of them ended up married to Liliana's sisters. A story built on cages and obsession turned into a household drowning in affection. The mad sorcerer became a doting brother. The bloody tyrant became an uncle with a death wish. A whale drifted across the open sky, and Liliana's eyes filled with stars. Impressive, isn't it? Then call me Big Brother, as thanks. So the whole performance had a price. It isn't hard, Castle told her. Try saying it. He looked down at her with a fondness so bright she could barely keep her eyes open. But you're my sister's husband, she said. And I already have a brother. We're family either way. He spread his arms wide, ready to scoop her up and lift her over his head. Liliana bolted before he could touch her. Behind her, Castle sank to his knees in the grass, wailing about being abandoned by his beloved sister. Halfway across the lawn, her foot caught, and something hauled her upright by one hand. It was Leo, another of her sister's men. "Didn't I tell you to stop running everywhere?" he said. She escaped that lecture straight into the brother-in-law she hated most. "You've gotten shorter, barely knee-high, really." She swung at Marius, and he caught her fist without looking. A blonde boy shoved between them, small arms around her shoulders, finger jabbing at the Emperor. "We're soulmates," he shouted. "You don't get to bully her." His name was Aga. He turned up every time she was cornered. So why had a story this dark curdled into something this warm? A month ago, Liliana had burned with fever for days, drifting in and out of sense. Memories that were not hers poured in, and she understood she was living inside a dark harem novel. The heroine wins every male lead, then turns them loose on the world and starts a war. They all march out to die for her attention. Alice, the eldest sister, dies with them. Liliana is taken to the Empire as a prisoner. There she finally sees the cause of everything. Rebecca. One look and she understood why they lost their minds. She wanted to save Alice. But whatever her memories held, her mind was still the mind of a 6-year-old. And then Rebecca held out a chocolate bar, and every plan she had went straight out of her head. "Do you like chocolate?" Liliana loved chocolate. "Say thank you first," Amelia warned. The chocolate was in her mouth before she finished. Rebecca smoothed her hair, voice soft. "What is it you want, Liliana? To live happily with my sisters? Then it will happen." "So what were the memories for?" Liliana stopped eating properly and stopped sleeping well. "What's wrong, kid? Youngest in the house and you sigh the heaviest. Keeping secrets from your sisters?" Her second sister rested a hand on her head. "She just doesn't want the bell peppers." Liliana looked away, guilty. Bell peppers were pitiful. Why did anyone have to eat them? Amelia's glare worked better than any argument. Then her third sister carried in a pot of soup. Every ingredient in it was something Liliana loved. These were her 3 sisters. Amelia, the second, sharp as a blade. Regina, the third, gentle with everyone. And Alice, the eldest, the one Liliana loved most in the world. There was a brother, too. Andrew was away so often that missing him had become a habit. With the heroine dead, she didn't know whether to say anything. Dinner mattered more. But a plot will keep moving even when nobody is watching it. Out shopping with Amelia, Liliana passed a man beautiful enough to make women resentful. Then her sister said his name out loud. Castle. Something cold went through Liliana's chest. Castle, the genius mage, the one who kept the heroine locked in a tower. She prayed she had misheard. He introduced himself again, as if on purpose. He shouldn't exist here yet. The story was supposed to start 6 years from now. She knew exactly what this man turned into once the heroine slipped away from him. What she didn't understand was why Amelia seemed so determined to speak with him. So Liliana made herself look straight at him. If he threatened her sister, she would break his arm. And what does Lady Amelia want from me? Her sister's hand settled on her head. This is my little sister. She was born early. She's fragile. A fright is enough to give her a fever. You're asking whether healing magic would help her. So this was about her. Liliana understood and knew she had to stop it immediately. Amelia assumed the tugging meant she wanted juice. Liliana looked at her favorite drink, thought about the danger, and poured the whole glass down her own front. Soaked through, the conversation would have to end. She stole a look at the mage. He was watching only her, with the expression of a man who had already seen through it. He isn't handsome? He is. She still didn't like him. Emilia wasn't going to be talked out of it. Her sister's health depended on that magic. Liliana pressed her forehead. These sisters were exhausting, and she could not refuse a single thing they did for her. The next day, Regina took her to the amusement park, and Liliana had never been happier. After Rebecca, the fevers had kept her home from school for months. Her sisters finally gave in, slides, and the swings she had missed most. The swing was good, but she wanted higher. If only someone would push. You want to go higher? Higher than this. The man behind her sounded delighted. He pushed harder, and she was having too much fun to keep hold of the chains. She came off the top of the arc. Her mind went white. A huge pair of arms caught her. Regina reached them in tears, hands running over her, checking for blood. The man was shaking too, apologizing over and over. She's fine, Marius. Nothing's broken. That name landed like a dropped plate. Good catch. Thank you, Leo. Castle had barely appeared. Now the other two were standing in front of her. Worse, her sister was shouting at one of them. She is this small. How could you push a child that hard? Liliana had never once seen gentle Regina like this. Marius stood there and took it, speechless. If he hadn't caught her, Regina said, my sister would be broken on that gravel. Liliana was tugging at her sleeve to stop when the Emperor bowed his head and apologized. This was the Tyrant from her memories, bowing, to a woman shouting at him in a playground. I'm fine, Liliana said. Regina let it go because the child was comforting her. Leo looked embarrassed to be thanked. In the novel, this man was the highest swordsman alive. Thank you for catching me. That small, polite voice took Marius apart completely, which was how he came to ask whether Liliana might act as their guide. The request was ignored on the spot. Do you two have any idea how hard it is to even reach Chobancha? Then perhaps you could help us, my lady. Don't agree, Liliana hissed. Have you no shame at all? Nicely said, Liliana thought. Then Marius clapped Leo on the back. Honestly, he wants a guide far more than I do. The two of them exchanged a look of perfect understanding. I'm shameless enough to beg, Leo said. Liliana felt the situation leaving her hands. If Marius was here, Alice had contacted him. Her eldest sister served in the royal guard. So Liliana changed tactics. If she couldn't keep the male leads away, she would make them family friends. Regina agreed to the tour and went on ignoring Marius completely. Marius didn't mind. The air around these people was nothing like the air around Castle. The guide was tired within the hour. Didn't know children your size were allowed to complain. How old are you? 6. And I am not a child. At 6, you're a sweetheart, not a child. Fine. How old are you? Marius turned something on behind his eyes. How old do you think I am? It was devastating, and Liliana had no defense whatsoever against beautiful things. You look about 550. What? Not 500. 5,500. Marius took it without blinking. Even at 5,000, I'd still be the handsomest man here. Wouldn't I? No, Leo is much better looking. That went straight through the Emperor's armor. Call him ancient, fine. Call him uglier than Leo, never. Leo laughed and clapped his shoulder. Liliana laughed too. She had not yet remembered what this man does to her family. You're joking. I'm not. Regina laughed out loud. The youngest has taste. So do I, Regina added, and Leo's face went red as a ripe persimmon. The food arrived and Liliana's growling stomach was answered. She had her fork up when another guest walked into the restaurant. Castle, why are you here? I had business. I came early. Didn't you two arrive before me? The noodles turned to paper in Liliana's mouth. We came early to learn the roads, and we acquired an adorable guide. Kid, why have you gone that color? Because the most dangerous man in the book was smiling at her. We meet again, little lady. In the original, he did not only cage the heroine, he made Liliana a maid. Rebecca fought him on it, so Castle poisoned the child instead. Not enough to kill. Enough that she needed his antidote forever. Rebecca ate everything he gave her after that, and vomited it all back up. That was why Liliana could never sit across from this man. Regina noticed. A pleasure to meet you. You seem to know our youngest. You're Amelia's sister? I am, though I'm curious. How does my sister know you? Castle smiled. She signed a contract with me. For Liliana's health. Regina asked what the terms were. Castle declined to say. Her face darkened. Her own sister had hidden something this large. Liliana's food went tasteless. She didn't know the terms either. She knew Amelia had signed them for her. Castle kept pouring oil on it. Your second sister took quite a scolding over it, I hear. The pressure coming off Regina climbed. So I'm the only one who wasn't told. Liliana put her fork down. Run, Amelia. And Amelia, 3 streets away, had no idea what was coming for her. The sun went down gold over the water. Liliana surfaced from sleep. She was on Leo's back. Marius noticed first. Our little lady has returned to us. Sleep well, Regina asked. The last thing she remembered was Castle leaving after the meal. Then nothing. She had drooled through Leo's shirt. Sir Leo, we're nearly home. I can walk you to the door, there's no need. He didn't push and set her down. But before leaving, he called Regina back, went scarlet, and lost the ability to form words. Would there be another chance? To ask you to guide me again. Liliana brought her heel down on Marius's polished shoe. Do not ruin this. He pinned her with one hand and repeated her own words back in her own voice. She answered with a volley of knees to his ribs. Marius simply picked her up and threw her at the sky. Put me down, I am not a child. Everyone who says that is a child. Fine, if that's how it is. And Liliana deployed the only weapon a 6-year-old truly owns. The shrieking cut Leo's confession in half. They settled on a date anyway. Leo gave Marius a helpless look. I did that so you and Regina could meet again. Where is my thank you? Marius studied him. He had never seen that expression on the blockhead before. Leo might actually be in love. His knights would not survive the news. Getting hopelessly lost had delivered them to that playground like a gift. Leo, the finest knight in the Empire. Marius, who walked over his own family's blood to the throne. 2 men strong enough to cross any border they liked. Neither could find a street twice. Where are we? Don't ask me. So they wandered. And the streets they wandered were calm, fed, and prosperous. Marius felt his plans for invasion start to slip. An alliance with Chobancha might serve better. Then he heard a child laughing and realized they had walked into a playground. The face on that swing made him abandon the invasion entirely. It belonged to an old friend. Listen to me, Marius, I may not come back. Look after my family. Andrew's last words. Something rare and sad moved behind the Emperor's arrogant eyes. Leo turned to say something and found the man already gone. Marius was behind the swing, pushing gently, his face unrecognizably soft. Andrew, turn time back as far as you like. I swore to protect the sisters you loved. Now hold on tight. I'm going to push harder. At home, Regina and Amelia were tearing into each other. One trusted Castle to cure the girl. The other refused to let her become an experiment. Alice ended it by walking between them. The next morning, the sun was high and Liliana was still asleep. Amelia ran out of patience. 5 more minutes, please. Amelia had never indulged her once. I'm begging you. No means no. Overbread, Liliana asked the plan. Remember the beautiful man from the market. We're seeing him today. Liliana put down the bread and clutched her stomach. My tummy hurts. I think I should stay home. One look from Amelia and the illness made a full recovery. It was always going to come. She just hadn't expected it this many years early. Castle poisoning her was supposed to be a distant chapter. She stared at the glass fizzing in front of her. She begged Amelia with her eyes. Amelia slid it closer. Anything that helps the body tastes like punishment. She would rather die. Drink all of it and you can have anything you want. I don't want anything. Amelia put the straw against her lips. Her sister would never hurt her. On that logic, Liliana took 1 sip. The taste detonated. She brought all of it straight back up. Amelia went pale. A little more, her sister urged. Liliana set her jaw and tried again. It would not go down. She announced she would rather take needles. That was when Amelia's temper went. You are finishing it today. Liliana burst into tears, grabbed her plate, and told her sister she hated her. She relocated to the next table in front of the entire restaurant. Heartbroken, but still eating. Amelia cooled down and apologized for the shouting. Liliana turned her face to the wall. Then a slice of cake arrived in front of her and the grief evaporated. Let's call a truce. A beautiful man being kind at close range made her forget she was furious. She caught herself. The prettier they are, the worse they are. She folded her arms. She swore not to fall for it. Castle raised one hand, unhurried. Gold light gathered into a squirrel that sang, danced, and turned somersaults in the air. The fur looked impossibly soft. Shall we calm down and forgive your sister? No. Yes. She had agreed instantly. She opened her mouth to take it back, and cake filled it. You drank that magic water. It tasted like that, and you drank it. You're brave, Liliana. And that was how she was bribed back to the table. Emilia was looking at him differently now. Castle warned that a fever would follow, and she needed rest. Then come and check on her every week. Naturally. It's written into the contract. But more than that. Castle turned and looked directly at Liliana. His eyes went serious. I want her to grow up healthy. I mean that. All the way home, Liliana turned it over. Nothing explained the look on his face when he said goodbye. She eased Regina's door open. Perfect timing, little sister. Come here. Which of these looks better on me, the green or the gold? Liliana's talents began and ended at the dinner table. Dresses were far beyond her. Emilia followed her in. You've been on 100 dates. Who's worth this much fuss? Regina had hair like a poured stream of gold and eyes like cut stones, and she had always wanted a great romance. 100 dates and not one man had held her interest. This time she was the one chasing. Who is it? Liliana asked. Do I know him? The man we met the other day? Leo? What? You said Leo. Emilia asked who that was. You wouldn't know him, said the woman with no dates. Inside Liliana's head, something detonated. In the original story, Leo and Alice commanded the armies of two nations. Chobancha lost the war. And Leo was the man who put a blade through her eldest sister. If he married into this house instead, Alice would live. Liliana threw both hands and both feet into the air in support of the match. Then Emilia frowned at her. Why is your face that color? We're getting you something for the fever. Why? Because you have one. Liliana touched her own forehead. It was burning. That night, Regina gave up the date without a word of complaint and took her little sister to the hospital. Liliana said nothing the whole way there. It would be years before anyone told her what that fever was the beginning of. Leo stood up, looked like a man who had lost his faith in living. Rejected? No. She didn't come. He kept replaying the goodbye. Are you married or promised to someone? He had shaken his head. Regina was the one who picked the time and the place. He had let himself believe that meant something. 3 hours of waiting had answered the question. Marius had no idea what to say to him. He only mentioned that the new liaison was due and they should pack. Then someone knocked. Leo opened the door with a dead face. Marius stepped up to greet the visitor, took her hand, and his green eyes narrowed with an astonishment he couldn't hide. Captain Alice, Chevia Maritime Guard, a pleasure. One glance was all it took. The Emperor found himself with nothing to say. She was unreachable, weather-worn, entirely her own, and her voice was startlingly gentle. You're Regina's sister? Marius explained the whole tangle to her. The moment Leo understood who she was, the dead face came off him, and something like panic went on. They loaded the carriage and rode out. Nobody spoke. Watching the woman sitting straight backed across from him, Marius stopped being amused. House Berico was the most powerful political family in Chobancha. It had produced statesmen and generals for generations. Sending someone like Alice to escort him was Chobancha's way of proving it was serious. How is Liliana, by the way? Days of high fever. She's in hospital. Regina hasn't left her side, so he hadn't been stood up after all. Leo went red to the ears. Marius watched this happen and sighed at the ceiling. So, they say Chobancha is full of treasures. Is that true? What is it you want? I've decided on a political marriage. Marius had a soul contract drawn up. Break it. And the heart breaks with it. I trust an oath in blood more than a treaty on paper. Any particular requirements? Preferably a woman from a powerful political house. Alice's gaze sharpened. This lazy, smiling man had climbed to his throne over his own family's bodies. Under that bloodline was something suffocating. I think Lady Alice would do nicely. Only then did she understand she had been the target from the beginning. Alice smiled. That depends entirely on what you can offer me. You should know by now, I don't compromise cheaply. Back at the hospital, the fever wouldn't break, and Regina and Emilia were tearing strips off each other. Liliana lay there feeling wretched. Her sisters were like this because of her. Every time she opened her eyes, Emilia was sitting there crying. If I just get better, she'll stop. Somebody must have heard her. The next morning, the fever was gone, and she could stand. She got past Emilia and ran for the amusement park alone. On the way, she tried to think it through properly. Rebecca was dead. If the woman Marius loved wanted peace, would he still start his war? And if there was no war, Castle would never lose his mind. If only she hadn't got sick. Leo and Regina should have had that date. Leo was kind and almost frighteningly innocent. But where was she supposed to find them? She turned a corner and a familiar voice found her first. Heard you were unwell, kid. Looks like you survived. With Liliana upright again, the shouting at home finally stopped. Amelia was on her way out to look for her when Alice caught her arm. I'll go today. Amelia didn't argue. She had books waiting at the library. Alice saw Regina with her eyes shut and told her to lie down properly. Regina said she wasn't tired, twisted a lock of hair around one finger, and went pink. I can't sleep for thinking about him. Who could possibly do that to you? Just a man I met once. Honestly, his personality isn't my type at all. And on looks, I've always preferred someone like Castle. But every time he came close, that low voice, and the way he went red asking to see me again, it's carved into me now. If it was fate, they would meet again. Then Regina pushed her out the door. Bring back something good to eat. Alice opened the door and Liliana was standing right there. Her eyes lit up and she launched herself into her sister's arms. Regina lifted her head and walked straight into someone's gaze. And in that second, the noise of the street dropped away and all she could hear was her own heartbeat. Then it hit her. Night clothes, unwashed face, hair like a bird's nest. Regina vanished from the doorway. Liliana explained that the two men had got lost and had no money, so she had brought them home. Marius came grinning around the corner, Lady Alice, as beautiful as ever. Once Regina was decent, they all walked down to the restaurant. Liliana, we do not run in restaurants. I'm not running, I'm finding seats. She parked Leo directly beside her sister. The two of them looked at each other and the air went warm. Then, in case he needed help, she added that Regina loved lilacs, and she wasn't finished. She had held both their hands all the way here, and told her sister at length how handsome Leo was. Liliana had already started picturing Leo as her brother-in-law. Once that happened, the odds of war dropped and Alice's odds of living went up, and if they had a baby, she'd be an aunt. Alice knocked the fantasy out of her with one knuckle to the head. What was that for? Are you meddling with Regina again? Marius had watched all of it. Liliana, fancy playing Cupid one more time. His eyes slid sideways to Alice. For your other sister. Elsewhere, the face Castle was proudest of was being openly criticized by Amelia. Amelia studied magic and had exactly one pleasure in life, which was disappearing into a library. As luck had it, that was where Castle turned up. She was a regular, so she started recommending him better books. Eventually, her enthusiasm outran his patience. I should be going. He caught her sleeve as she turned. He wanted to buy her dinner as thanks. To Amelia, this was nothing worth discussing. Castle insisted because Castle had his own reasons. He wanted to learn about Chobancha through her. And she was Andrew's sister, and he and Andrew had an agreement once. To close the distance quickly, Castle deployed his best weapon. That face plus that particular smile had never failed against anything alive. Amelia's whole face screwed up in an expression he had genuinely never seen before. Sorry, your smile is unpleasant. Unpleasant. The most beautiful man in the Empire had no counter for that. Then she leaned in and dropped her voice. It might work on other people. It does nothing to me, so stop wasting your time. Sitting across from a woman completely immune to him, Castle began to doubt his own face. So he turned it on the woman at the next table instead. She nearly went through the ceiling. Good, it still worked. So where was the fault? He looked back and Amelia was grimacing at him again. Castle found he didn't mind. He found her fascinating. Meanwhile, Liliana was looking at a face that wanted to swallow the Emperor whole. Then Marius produced a menu. Order whatever you like, Liliana, really. Of course. But you said you had no money. To settle the matter, he waved a hand. If it's printed on there, order it. Her eyes went enormous with admiration. Well, am I the coolest or not? She barely ate any of it. But Marius had every dessert she liked boxed up to take home. Her opinion of him climbed sharply. She turned and found Leo cutting Regina's steak for her. The look those two exchanged had her giggling into her hand. So Leo started cutting Liliana's meat too. Looking at the palm-sized slab on her plate, he thought of Aga, same age as this girl, and the boy ate twice as much. Then Alice noticed the untouched vegetables. Liliana was holding her nose over a carrot when Marius reached across and took half her vegetables onto his own plate. The goodwill that bought him lasted until he opened his mouth again. So, am I magnificent or what? I'm tired. And she stopped acknowledging his existence. Marius got up for the bathroom and Regina moved to go with Liliana. I'm not a baby. Well then, our Lily is all grown up. The adults finally got to the real conversation. Stay away from our little sister. Marius let the warning slide off him. Let's talk about the marriage. What are your terms? Your sister's health, Liliana's? He took a mouthful of gold wine. As things stand, that child does not see 16. You need to hear that properly. And so, to buy Liliana years, Alice agreed to marry an emperor. Liliana knew none of it, only that the air had changed. From Alice's face, Marius had clearly upset her again. So, kid, what do you want to do after dinner? Eat more, obviously. And after that? That one was harder. She checked her eldest sister's expression, saw the eyebrows draw together, and swallowed the second half of the sentence. Then said it anyway. The circus. She knew crowds were forbidden to her. Alice's look landed exactly where expected. But Marius ruffled her hair. A circus sounds entertaining. Let's go and see. Liliana's face split open. Vika from her nursery had been saying for months how good it was. To prove herself worthy, she picked up her fork and ate every vegetable on the plate, then dragged her sister towards the door. Slow down. It won't leave without you. That was the wrong thing to say. She went off like a horse out of a gate, leaving her sister behind, one word in her head: circus. She was too excited to notice she was standing in the middle of the road. A carriage came around the corner. Iron-shod hooves went up and came down fast. There was a heavy sound and then screaming from every direction. When she opened her eyes, she was lying in her sister's arms and Alice was bleeding from everywhere. She had put her own body between the child and the horses. People came running. Regina had no color left in her face. Marius said Alice's name again and again and nothing came back. Liliana had never been so frightened. Please, please don't be like this. Then, Alice sat up off the ground. Seeing her sister's face, Liliana braced for the worst telling off of her life. Instead, Alice took her head in both hands and checked every inch of her. Did you hit your head? Does your leg hurt? Do you understand what nearly happened? And Liliana came apart. I'm just glad you're alive. You're hurt because of me. It's nothing, Liliana. Every time she said that, it got worse. Liliana cried until her eyes swelled shut, and then slept. Marius closed the bedroom door quietly. That frightened her badly today. Shame about the scars, though. On a face like that. Do it. What did you just say? After that day, Alice stopped deliberating. Let's complete our agreement. The political marriage. Alice had never once dreamed about love. After Andrew left, the family became the whole of her life. She had planned her career to the year and struck marriage off the list entirely. Carrying this house was her only purpose. And Liliana was not only her sister, she was her daughter in everything but name. She could not sit and watch this child die of an illness. If a marriage could buy her years, Alice would marry a man she felt nothing for. That steadiness stopped Marius cold again. This was a woman who appeared never to have considered herself once. He couldn't read her, and he couldn't look away from her either. Leo felt sick about it. Protecting Liliana should have been his job. Alice had simply been faster than him. Then he saw Regina standing alone, wrecked, and went over. Regina made herself smile. I think I'm rather pathetic. Why would you say that? Leo didn't understand at all. That's twice now I couldn't save Liliana. She was standing right beside me, and I did nothing. If I were the slightest bit more useful, Alice wouldn't be bleeding. Watching the tears gather, Leo sat down beside her and took her hand. Forgive me. I'm no good at this. I don't have the delicate feelings. I can fight and I can guard and nothing else. But everyone is good at something. So protect Liliana your own way, Lady Regina, the way you already do. Only then did he notice he was holding her hand. Forgive me. That was presumptuous. The clumsiness of it made her laugh out loud. You've made me feel better than anything else has. Before you sail home, could you spare an afternoon? I'd like to invite you to our house. Leo considered it. Instead of visiting the house, could we do something else? Such as, I'd like to finish the date we never had. I've been waiting for it. While those two dripped honey on each other, The news of Alice marrying the emperor landed like lightning from a clear sky. "These gutter papers print anything," Regina was saying, with the paper crushed in her fist. Then Alice told her sisters it was true. She refused to explain and told Liliana to go to her room. Regina and Amelia stood there like statues. "You're getting married?" "Yes." "To the man called Marius." And then there were two people not staying calm. Amelia demanded to know why. Liliana hesitated in the doorway until Alice's eyes moved her. In her room, she held the doll against her chest, understanding nothing, so she decided to go and find out. Which was how she overheard that Alice was leaving the house and meant to take her along. To stop the wedding, Liliana deployed her ultimate technique, which failed because she had no carriage fare. When a family is split apart, society decays. When society decays, the universe explodes. Her small head held very large principles. So she resolved to settle it herself and go and talk the emperor out of it. After last night's shouting, getting out of the house was surprisingly easy. That left the carriage. The driver was not having it. "Go home and stop making trouble, kid. I have money. I want the Zorro Hotel. Then fetch your mother." "I don't have a mother." "Or a father?" "My brother is in that hotel. He's had a fight with my sister. And I really want to see him." She was lying. The man in the hotel was Marius. But saying the word brother opened something. Andrew had held this family together with his hands. After their parents died, the brother 24 years older than her had carried all of it. He wasn't a brother to her. He was a second father. And the reason he left was obviously that she had been too much trouble, and he had got tired of her. That thought put real tears on her face. The driver folded like wet paper. Family should see family. "You think so too? Then let's go." Liliana was in that carriage before she had finished being sad. So that was sorted. The tears dried into pure smugness in under a second. When I see Marius, I should collapse on the floor. Then tell him he's the handsomest man alive and talk him out of marrying Alice. She blinked at the window and they had already arrived. Being a well-brought-up child, she announced that she would pay her fare. She counted 5 coins out of a small hand, gave them over, and ran without looking back. The driver stared at the coins and caught her by the collar. "This isn't enough, kid." "Impossible." Her sister always gave her 5 for the carousel, so she had counted 5. Then she noticed the problem. Hers were copper, not silver. Just then Marius stepped down from a carriage. The argument caught his ear. Liliana saw him too. "Brother, Liliana, come here. Wait. Why is she here, attached to my leg, asking for money?" "Why are you in a hired carriage?" The small brain worked fast. "Because I came to see you." It went straight through the emperor's ribs. His mouth curved before he could stop it. "You called me brother just now. Say it again." Something hot and unreasonable rose in Liliana's chest, but she was a guest here, so she swallowed it. "If you're her guardian, pay the fare." A gold coin was in the air before the man finished. That should cover it. And Liliana watched money work. The driver's entire personality changed. 1 coin was enough? Naturally. Alice had told her 1 gold was worth 100 silver. And last time this rich man had looked her in the eye and said he couldn't afford lunch. "Hungry, kid? Eat with me." Liliana had no grounds on which to refuse. "Did you miss me?" "No. And you aren't my brother. You called me brother first." I was joking. Her seriousness undid him completely. "Well, isn't my little sister-in-law adorable?" She slapped the table. "I am not your sister-in-law. Give it a few weeks." "No, I object." Marius arranged his face into tragedy. "I may actually weep." "Then weep. I'll buy you chocolate afterwards." "On condition you give up my sister." "He couldn't work it out. Why don't you like me?" "Because next to her you're nothing. She's the most beautiful, the strongest, the best there is. And am I not the handsomest, richest, most powerful man alive? You forgot most shameless. Are all emperors this brazen? On strength alone you lose to Leo. On looks, Castle beats you." She was laughing with the 2 men who, in the story she remembered, take her eldest sister apart between them. "You didn't come here alone, did you? Where are your sisters?" Liliana thought about it. "I came alone. But you told them before you left." "Obviously," she said, without blinking. She was a clever girl, so she'd left a note. And what did the note say? She appeared unable to recall. Liliana reminded herself to remain calm. Press your face into the doll. The doll always knows. Tell me what to do. Nothing came. Then cry first and think later. Marius sent his aide to inform her sisters. The house had already come apart. They had searched every street and found nothing. Amelia was on her way to beg Castle for help when someone knocked. They all prayed it was her, except she would have shoved the door open herself. Amelia opened it on hope. It was Leo, holding flowers. His timing remained perfect. I'm sorry, Leo. I can't come today either. Liliana is missing. Then a servant arrived to report that Liliana was at the Zorro Hotel with Marius. The whole way there, Alice told herself to stay calm and simply find out why the child had run. Then she actually saw her, and something in her gave way. She took hold of Liliana's arm. You tell us before you go anywhere. Do you understand that? Liliana understood. She apologized in pieces, and if something had happened to you. Alice was crying, and that was when the child grasped how badly she had got it wrong. If Alice went the way Andrew did, if even Alice stopped wanting her. Liliana grabbed her and howled, "Don't ever make me leave you." And Alice understood that she had raised this girl out of duty and never once asked her how she felt. Back in Chobancha, Liliana was sentenced to 15 minutes on the thinking chair with water brought to her by hand. Marius took the seat beside her and asked why she'd done it, and why she didn't want Alice to marry him. Is it because you think I'm stealing your sister? It landed dead center, and her whole face went red. But he only had half of it. If Leo married Regina, they would live in Chobancha. Marius could never leave the palace. Losing Andrew had already been more than she could carry. She could not lose a sister, too. Then she overheard Leo and Regina talking. Regina had decided to live in the Empire, like Alice, and was asking what work she might do. That took more courage than anyone gave her credit for. If it weren't for Alice, she would never set foot in a country that treated women and children the way that one did. She had watched her eldest sister buckle, and she would not stand by. I know this is sudden. But Leo cut her off because he had spotted Liliana listening around the corner. She ran back to her room with nothing, unable to work out what she had done wrong. Leo kept turning Regina's words over. Once I move to the Empire, I won't be a burden. I intend to earn my own living. It astonished him. No lady he had ever met worked. Among the nobility, the job was to collect rents and look after the tenants. And yet a house as old as Barrico produced people like this. His aide reported his strange behavior, but Marius was used to it by now. All this because Regina is coming? Obviously, not a second's hesitation. So love does that to a man. Then he reminded Leo of his oath. If the Empire and Chobancha ever go to war, Leo already understood, which is why I hope you'll handle Regina properly. Regina, Marius repeated and turned on his heel. On the way out, he looked down at the small box in his hand and caught himself smiling. Meanwhile, Liliana was bored to the edge of death. 3 days confined to the house was a sentence. Thinking about Amelia's shouting, staying in the Empire with Alice began to sound survivable. She put down the pen. The letter to Andrew was finished. However crumpled the paper, she was certain her brother would forgive her when he read it. Carrying that certainty, she knocked on Regina's door. Take me to the theater. Regina had no time. So Liliana went to bother Amelia instead, who normally forbade her from leaving the house. Today, strangely, she agreed. Really? Have I ever lied to you? Many times. Amelia's roar went up behind her. Liliana ran on instinct. It was only the truth. She pulled the door open onto a scream. Marius was flat on the floor with both hands over his face. Oh, you. Why are you here? He had come to propose and had been struck down in the doorway by a 6-year-old. He lay there, cradling his nose. I believe it's broken. If a small girl blew on it, that might help. She crept closer and caught the smirk. Why couldn't the collision have finished him? But she blew on it anyway, waving both arms. You're very good at this, kid. Naturally, she said. Then Amelia appeared. And why are you here? Marius stated his business. He had come for Alice. Amelia's eyes went perfectly round. Marius looked back at her blankly. The noise brought Alice out. Alice asked exactly the same question Amelia had. What are you doing here? I've brought your engagement ring, and I'd like to take you to dinner. Liliana tried to come along, and Amelia removed her without ceremony. This one is Alice's to handle. Liliana refused to go quietly. She had instructions for her sister first. Don't stay near the silly uncle too long. Come home early. Alice laughed because that was her own line coming back at her. The smile stayed on her mouth. In a private room a short while later, Marius laid out a 10-year marriage contract with its conditions and its entitlements. Alice added one clause. For the duration, he would use his divine power to treat Liliana. Emilia knew Castle, but Alice trusted ink on paper more. And for the duration, my family may enter the empire freely. Marius accepted every term she set. With nothing left to add, Alice asked him plainly, "And you? What is it you actually want?" What more could a man want, having Alice? She looked at him the way one looks at a pervert. "You seem to think we're a couple in love." As for what Marius really wanted, he had no answer to that himself. The only person in that house who never lied then lied to Liliana again, to get her to Castle. "I'll post your letter and buy you something good on the way." What waited at the end of it was Castle, smiling pleasantly. Emilia felt guilty enough to offer fruit jelly in compensation. The scale of the bribe gave Liliana pause. 2 of them. No, 4. They shook on it, facing the beautiful man across the table. Liliana tried playing stupid to get out of it, and he only kept smiling that soft smile, until she began to think he might not be so frightening. He seemed to read it off her face. "Are you scared of your big brother?" She denied it instantly. Emilia cut in. "It's Sir, not Big Brother. He's rather past Big Brother these days." Nobody could match Emilia for cruelty. But however those two went at each other, Liliana still had to drink the bitter thing. Could we skip to the jelly? Just then, something soft and furry touched her hand. Not the bear from last time, but the same idea. A small bear danced on the table, as payment for medicine. After 1 second of deliberation, the drink became noticeably less terrible. Back home afterwards, Liliana found Regina introducing Leo to everyone and announcing that she intended to date him. Liliana glanced at Emilia and prayed. God ignored her, and then made it worse. Regina stayed perfectly calm and kept praising Leo until even a 6-year-old could smell gunpowder in the room. Emilia took her sister's wrist. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do." The door slammed hard enough to rattle the glass. Regina crouched down and asked Liliana's opinion. Liliana liked Leo. Compared to her sister's previous men, he was practically an institution. Then Alice spoke. "So, Liliana, the Empire or here?" The ring on her sister's finger had already answered the question. Liliana wanted Chobancha, with its warm shallows, its cheap fruit and its familiar faces. An adult might have negotiated. She had 10 years to wait for that. 3,650 nights. The next morning, Emilia, who had not slept, was woken by sunlight and rage. "Who opened my curtains?" So she's finally awake. Emilia turned rigid. An elegantly dressed man was drinking her tea, and the light coming off him made the sunrise look cheap. Nobody could have guessed that this morning call was the start of a debt Castle would not collect for 10 years. Her head, still full of last night, could not produce a single memory. She vaguely recalled drinking like a woman with no future, and on waking, here he was at her bedside, demanding she answer for it. Since she clearly had nothing, Castle produced a shirt stained deep red to help. It was silk, and the weave alone was worth more than her month. "You held on to me last night and vomited." Emilia exhaled. "Oh, that. I'll compensate you for the shirt." But Castle had not come for a shirt. He took out a pill and swallowed it, and something in him shifted. "Let's make an arrangement instead. I'll help you, and I'll treat your sister. 10 years from now, you help me." Emilia asked what it would cost her, and met a look she couldn't read. He held her eyes, and said it slowly. "In a few years, you'll know. As for Liliana," Andrew's reply finally came. It was pitifully short. He was busy. He could not see her for some time. The watermarks on the paper came from Liliana's swollen eyes. Today, Alice was meeting Marius, and her brother had written 4 lines, which settled it. She had been thrown away. And now Emilia had left home too. And all of it came from that hateful marriage. "Afraid I'll steal your sister? No. I just don't want to leave my friends. Leo said he knew a boy exactly her age. That was not the point. Then I'll take you to meet them later." She would still be leaving her friends. Liliana asked it very quietly. "Alice, could you just not get married?" The words were out before she checked them, and the room tightened around her. It was Marius of all people who covered for her. "The Empire has interesting things in it. Would you like to see?" A man who was never serious about anything had gone serious, and it made him very hard to refuse. That state of affairs rarely survived 3 seconds. When Antonio heard she was leaving, he cried until he couldn't breathe. He didn't want her to go, and neither did she. But something larger was waiting for her. So, she proposed that they write to each other and swore that she would come back if she ever could. They hooked their little fingers and signed a permanent treaty of friendship. Through the carriage window, she looked at the only place she knew for the last time. The blue line of the horizon, the lemons and olive trees along the road, the faces she had grown up with. All of it waving her away. The ship pushed out into open water. Liliana had never been further than the next town. If only Amelia were here. She was foul-tempered and she was always kind to her. Sad about leaving home? The voice was familiar. Liliana turned. Amelia had been standing beside her for some time. Her last wish had been granted with almost insulting ease. She threw herself at her sister and reported everything that had happened in her absence. Alice came running. It should have been a happy reunion, except Amelia then announced she would be serving the Empire. As one of Chobancha's rarest minds, she had abandoned her research and joined the Mage Tower, which meant a storm was already waiting for them before the ship even docked. Once they arrived, Liliana assumed she would make friends. Instead, a blonde boy took one look at her and shouted in her face. Stubby pumpkin. Liliana had been adored her entire life, and her confidence took a direct hit. She decided to return fire. Not long before this, she had sailed in with her sisters, marveling at every gray-red building in the capital. Marius's vanity went off like a firework. Come to your big brother, Liliana. When she failed to acknowledge him, he simply picked her up himself. So, was coming to the Empire a good idea or not? She waggled a stubby finger. Depends on your behavior. Certain people keep calling me kid. Marius maintained that he only ever spoke the truth. That's it. I'm not talking to you anymore. Arguing all the way, they arrived at the palace, which made the whole town look like a shed. Marius glowed. Here, what are you supposed to call me? As if she didn't know exactly. Then she glanced at Alice, who read it instantly and put out a hand for her. When the carriage door opened, every eye in the courtyard turned. Liliana shrank in behind her sister. She wasn't the only one struggling. Regina and Amelia were both at sea. Only Alice met all of it without moving. Fear of unfamiliar things had her stalling on the step. And then, Marius spoke. Alice, my wife. Welcome to the Empire, you and your family. It worked on Liliana like a sedative. The nerves went, though. She still couldn't understand why servants were bowing to her. Nobody had ever treated her like that. Come to my rooms, then. She discovered that every member of the family had been assigned attendants. She ran to Alice's room and found her eldest sister exactly as upright as ever. Then, she went to Regina's and found she had already befriended every servant in the wing. Amelia, she assumed, would be impossible. Amelia had assigned them all clear duties within the hour. A full circuit of the palace confirmed that only Liliana didn't fit anywhere. Her only remaining conversational partner was the toy in her hand. She found herself missing a particular swing in Chobancha, which raised the question of whether this enormous palace had a playground. The gloom lifted immediately. First, explore, except one flower by the path was enough to hold her for an hour. What is this? I've never seen one. That's a tulip. They don't grow in Chobancha. It was Leo. A familiar face at last. Leo then explained that he was exhausted and needed to lie down. Would you play with my younger brother instead? He's exactly your age. Liliana brightened at once and looked where he was pointing, and found a blonde boy. She had never seen a boy that beautiful in her life. This was Leo's brother, Ega. His expression, however, was not welcoming. He was staring at the small hand, holding on to Leo's sleeve, and his face was getting darker. Liliana noticed nothing and greeted him cheerfully. Get lost, you horrible thing! Ega shoved her, hard, and tore Leo's sleeve. Out of her grip. We are not friends. Stop pretending. Stubby pumpkin. That went straight in. Had she misheard? Someone had called her a stubby pumpkin. In Chobancha, even Leo was frozen. Liliana, I'm certain he's only joking. Ega does want to be your friend. You want me to lie to her. Liliana stared up at him. Am I really that ugly? No, you're lovely. Everything went out of her at once. It was the first time in her life anyone had humiliated her. She asked it anyway. "Why would you say that? Why won't you be my friend?" The blonde boy turned his face away and ignored her completely, and that finished it. She turned and stalked off. I was going to make friends here. Apparently not. 3 steps later, she turned back with fire in her eyes. "Hey, you look like a stupid aubergine. If the poisonous blonde didn't want to be friends, she owed him nothing. And you look like an asparagus. No, not just asparagus. You look like a strand of wet seaweed." She was fully engaged now, and it was Iga's turn to doubt his own ears. Yes, seaweed. Leo caught him before he got there. "Let go. She called me seaweed. Blah." She mimicked him back word for word, which made it worse. And the angrier he got, the better she felt. Where a boy that size found the nerve, she couldn't say. She left him there furious and helpless and walked away. All that fuss over nothing. With luck, they would never meet again. Life had other plans. Come dinner. The adults sat them at the same table. The mood was excellent. Leo went on quietly looking after Regina. Marius attempted the same and lacked the qualifications. Rejected by Alice, he settled for cutting Liliana's steak. Iga stared at her the whole time. Years from now, that same stare would put a sword in his hand. While the 2 children conducted their silent war, a tomato rolled off Liliana's plate. Imagine not being able to hold onto a tomato. Iga speared it and flicked it back onto her plate, with slightly too much wrist, which put sauce across her favorite blouse. And then he offered the flattest apology ever spoken. Liliana went purple. Without a word, she loaded her fork and launched it directly at his face. The boy ducked it like an eel. She was reloading when she caught sight of Leo's exhausted face and stopped. There was no dignity in fighting a strand of seaweed. Be calm. Then something kicked her knee under the table. She stood up and Iga was gone. He had slid under the tablecloth like a snake to stamp on her favorite skirt with both feet. After dinner, the adults told them to make up. He called me spinach and sweet corn. "Those are very good for you," the adults said, understanding nothing. What Liliana genuinely didn't understand was why he hated her. So Regina told her about Ega. He isn't Leo's brother. He's his cousin. His father married Princess Elizabeth, which is why he carries a royal title. He lost both parents as an infant and was raised by his older cousins. It hasn't been easy for him. Liliana went very still. So Iga had had only Leo his whole life. Maybe he thinks I'm taking him away. And suddenly it made complete sense. After all, if someone took her sisters, she would behave exactly the same way. While she was still thinking it through, both her sisters lunged and crushed her from either side. "Our treasure. You're too good for this world. I can't breathe." After dessert, she felt sleepy. She was about to fall into bed when she found an enormous pumpkin already occupying it. No detective work required. She looked out the window, and there he was, snickering. The sleepiness left. Something else arrived. She threw the window open, grabbed her doll, and hurled it at him. "You're a praying mantis? If I'm a mantis, you're a gorilla." Liliana came out of that window like weather. She was an idiot. 5 minutes ago, she had tried to understand him. But rage plus a weak body has one outcome. And she went down face first onto the path and sobbed into it. "Iga, I hate you." He stopped when he heard it. He was still pleased with himself, right up until Leo appeared behind him with murder in his eyes. Facing that, Ega dug his heels in. She started it. "You called me a stubby pumpkin first, and you called me seaweed." They were still going when Leo simply picked Liliana up. He patted her back, and his voice was warm as bathwater. Iga had been furious. Watching that, he went completely silent. And Liliana, looking up, realized the horrible boy was about to cry. She didn't understand it, but she recognized it. When her sisters left, her face had done exactly that. Grief like the world ending. So she decided to settle this with Iga properly. She was soft, and she knew it. If he accepted her gift, maybe he'd beg her to be his friend. Except the palace was enormous, and she got completely lost. "Ega, where are you?" Eventually, she lay down on the floor and gave up. Then voices came up from below. She sat bolt upright. 2 servants were saying things about her eldest sister, unforgivable things. She was about to go down and deal with it when she heard how Marius had killed every one of his own siblings. And she stopped. She also learned that the Cold Emperor threw a birthday party every year for the cousin whose birth had cost the boy his mother. Then rage carried her down the stairs and she put her head into the man's stomach. Compared to a certain blonde, people who talk behind backs were much worse. The man came up grinding his teeth. Some Chabancha brat thinks she can do that. Sister of the Emperor's bride or not, someone should teach you manners. It didn't worry him. If nobody saw, nobody would believe a rude foreign child anyway. So he grew bolder and raised a hand to bring it down on her. And then a voice cut across the corridor and froze him where he stood. Liliana looked up, and there was the blonde boy who only ever bullied the weak. And the man in front of them remembered he was addressing a duke's son. The arrogance went out of him like air. Alice, arriving, could only breathe out slowly. But the eyes of the maids around them did not waver. Even facing Alice's temper, all that was in them was contempt. The child attacked me first. I only struck her once, because they insulted you. Liliana threw fuel on it, and that's not all. They called us mongrels. Alice had expected this. She hadn't expected it this fast. Ega, thank you. Would you take Liliana out of here? Then she gave those servants the last smile she had. Ega took her hand without arguing. Two children who could not meet without a fight walked out in perfect agreement. It did not last long. An argument broke out over which was stronger, Alice or Leo, and the pleasant air was gone in a blink, and the adults looked ready to draw steel. It was Ega who backed down first. Could you think before you act next time? They were the ones talking about you, she said. They deserved it. And the blonde boy went scarlet and told her she really hadn't needed to do that. The boy who had lived to insult her now stood behind her all day, asking why she hadn't invited him to play. If you agreed to be my minion, I might consider it. Ega was working up to fury when she turned to leave, and the fury switched off. Weren't you desperate to be my friend before? He had no idea how insufferable he was. Regardless, you must become my minion. Ever since she stood in front of him, Ega had been behaving strangely. He kept appearing outside her window and going red for no reason she could identify. So you don't have any friends at all, do you? That went into him like a nail. Don't make things up. Of course I have friends. Liliana gave up on him. Fine, but you're taking me to the gardens. Shortly afterwards, they stood at the garden gate. Watching her face, Ega couldn't hide his satisfaction. You look like you've never seen the world before. Liliana had her own view. That gate looked exactly like the mouth of a dragon's cave. Inside, there would be a wretched princess in a cell, waiting for the brave hero Liliana. Cowardly Ega naturally had no such vision. She took his hand. Come on, we're rescuing the princess. Ega looked at the hand holding his, and went red again without meaning to. But while she was still imagining her expedition, a man with shears came out of the gate. You can't go in? They were cutting back the hedges. Too dangerous. So the expedition was canceled on safety grounds. With Liliana's temperament, anywhere could be made fun. Games this childish were beneath Ega. Then I'll play alone from now on. The blonde boy panicked and joined the roleplay immediately. This time, the red on his face was pure embarrassment. Then something occurred to him. He muttered it, and she had to lean in to catch it. He hesitated a long time and then found the nerve. Why did you stand up for me back there? She answered without thinking about it. Because you're important, so other people don't get to say things about you. Ega had no idea what to do with that. She explained it was the same as with parents, but Ega had no parents. The only one he'd had died the day he was born. The air went heavy. Then Liliana's hair went past his face. She had put both arms around him. They had the same wound. Except Liliana had 3 sisters who loved her. She kept talking gently, and the blonde boy heard none of it. Seeing how red his face was, Liliana concluded he didn't like being hugged. Confirmed. A second later, when he tore himself loose. Before she could ask anything, he had already bolted. Back in his rooms, Leo came to find him. He had heard about the servants, but Leo was not built the way Regina was, and had no idea how to comfort a child. It was Ega who asked first. Leo's face went serious. The princess never once regretted having you. But my mother died because of me. Watching the boy carry that, Leo decided he needed the truth. After your father died, the princess got worse and worse. Everyone assumed she had months. Then she learned about you. Being pregnant gave her a reason to keep going. She held on so that you would be born safely, and so she could see you once. So she didn't die because of you. You were the reason she lived at all. You were a miracle made out of love. What she regretted at the end was that she couldn't stay, so she gave you to Marius. You were never a misfortune. From the day you were born, you were loved with nothing asked in return. He cried until his eyes swelled shut anyway, and then, with all of it explained, he argued back regardless. Dinner, get ready. Ega pulled out his chair and found the doll sitting in it. Move it, why? Because I want to sit here. Liliana did not follow. There were empty seats everywhere. Why did he need this one? That's Biscuit's seat. Go and sit opposite. He's only a toy, but he's still more important than you. That was more than the blonde boy could take. Under her disbelieving eyes, he punched the doll. Before she could react, he had arranged his face into reckless defiance and dropped into the seat opposite. Her eldest sister was ice. Her third sister was up to something. Liliana, who was normally the center of every dinner, was being ignored entirely. Marius caught her sigh. He apologized to both children for what the servants had done. Neither child cared. She was angry, but a warrior must be forgiving and magnanimous. Unlike certain people who promise to play and then run off halfway, Ega insisted he had not run away. He simply had no words for whatever had happened in his chest. Only you would play games that babyish. That went in exactly where it was aimed. For a boy who kept making the same mistake. She decided he no longer existed. So the blonde boy set about provoking her, and she had no intention of indulging him. The war went off like a dropped lamp. And at the end of it, both filthy, they fell asleep against each other. With that rare silence, the adults could finally talk. The problem remained that this court would not accept them. Alice could live with that. But she didn't want it reaching Liliana. Marius sat beside the sleeping child, looking at what his friend had left in his care. And something settled in his eyes. I can't stop every rumor. Alice knew that. In her position, she was obliged to prove herself, but he hadn't finished. What I can promise is that I'll protect you, the same way I protect her. Meanwhile, Leo and Regina finally had an afternoon to themselves. Both were still too shy to hold eye contact for longer than a second. Regina, being braver, waved him closer. She went up on her toes to whisper something, and Leo turned the color of a ripe tomato before she got a word out. And then, with the air between them going somewhere interesting, Amelia arrived at the worst possible moment, filthy from head to foot. Asked what she'd been doing, Amelia silently produced several specimen bags. She was collecting for her research, except the two of them, who had never had a crossword, had not recovered from the argument on the ship. Amelia snapped her pocket watch shut, then turned to Leo. I'm borrowing Regina for a moment. Deflated as he was, he could hardly refuse. Once she was sure nobody was near, Amelia told Regina that Leo was a duke and that she should think very hard before falling in love. Both of them went up at once. This could drag them into politics. And that would land on Alice. Besides, you can move what people feel, or have you forgotten? Everyone who knows suspects you've used it on them, that any man who loves you was made to. And then a tear fell. Regina didn't argue this time because all of it was true. She had never wanted anything except to be loved plainly. Amelia knew she had gone too far. She also could not stand by and watch her sister be hurt again. For a moment, she had nothing, and could only hope Leo was different from the others. Then Leo appeared and ended the conversation. Amelia turned, and her eyes had settled. Good timing. I'm returning Regina to you. Then she walked away without looking back. She had chosen to trust her sister. It might well end badly, but the choice was Regina's to make, and Regina was smiling again. Birdsong under a clean blue sky. Ega, did you see? That horse ate the carrot I gave it? Ega held her hand tightly. I saw. Next time we'll visit the knight's horses. I'd like that. They had screamed at each other across a restaurant, and somehow she was now playing with him daily. She had no other friends, and he knew every passage in the palace. Exploring with him was genuinely good fun. They had just crept out of the stables. He pointed ahead. Want to see if they have the olive and lemon trees you wanted? Her eyes went wide. She had mentioned wanting olives and lemons in a garden, once in passing. He had been carrying it around ever since. Slow down, all right. Watching his back, she thought that for all his rudeness, he might not be a bad child. They were running for the gardens when someone large stepped into their path. A grim-faced gardener told them the gardens were closed. They were putting in new flowers. Both children stopped dead. Ega frowned. It isn't winter. It isn't early spring. Who plants flowers now? The gardener explained that there were simply too many to plant this time, and they had fallen behind. Liliana looked up. Can we come tomorrow? The gardener would not meet their eyes. I'm very sorry. Whatever the reason, you cannot go in there today. Her face fell. Ega, what do we do? You wanted to see the olive trees. Liliana twisted the hem of her dress, then looked up. With the smile back on. It's fine. We'll play somewhere else. Ega blinked. Really? Then let's go there today. Where? She asked. He turned and shouted it. Somewhere you're going to love. He grabbed her hand and ran her across the courtyard again. She ran after him, asking where they were going. You'll see. Liliana was gasping, and her legs were getting heavy. She went red and shouted, Wait, stop a second, my hand. Ega stopped, and took her hand again, harder than before. Why won't you let go? You're crushing my fingers, and I genuinely cannot run anymore. His grip tightened. The palace is complicated. What if you got lost? Liliana considered that a palace, however large, was not a crowded market. Was constant hand-holding truly necessary? Or was it that she was the only friend he had? She sighed. All right. But we walk. Ega gave in with visible reluctance. You're impossible. Fine. They walked side by side down a road full of light, footsteps echoing in the quiet. Ega looked over. Liliana, why do you want to be a warrior? Because warriors are strong. He tilted his head. Aren't dragons stronger? She put her chest out. Dragons are the bad ones. Warrior is better. He nodded slowly. I see. So if you became one, who would you most want to protect? She had never once thought about it seriously. She had wanted to be a warrior since she was small, the vague way children want things out of picture books. Then it arrived. Maybe because my eldest sister is one. Lady Alice is a warrior? Liliana swelled with it. She catches pirates. She's incredible. Then why are you this feeble? Liliana went red to the ears. You wait. In 10 years, I'll have iron fists exactly like Alice's. Ega laughed out loud and she turned her face away, cursing him internally. Then he stopped walking. We're here. Liliana stopped too and looked up, and everything in her went still. An enormous tower stood over them, its shaft climbing into cloud, giving off something that made the air feel thin. Ega watched her mouth fall open. Well, isn't it magnificent? Princesses get locked in towers, not castles. This is the West Tower. Every royal mage keeps a laboratory inside it. Liliana's heart began slamming against her ribs. Her breathing came short and wrong. The world tilted and her legs went out from under her. Ega dropped into a crouch. Hey, what's wrong? Where does it hurt? Her mouth opened and produced nothing. She wanted to tell him she was fine, and something had closed around her throat. She knew what this place was far better than he did. She had never once asked herself why. She had never known how the novel ended, and she could not recall a single thing that happened after she was locked in this tower. The West Tower. The building swam in front of her. This place. Ega was shouting at her. Wake up. Her awareness went out like a lamp. And at the last second, she remembered. Castle had kept the heroine here, and Liliana here too, as a maid. She went down onto the gravel, and Ega caught her. The West Tower. This was where her life had ended the first time. Something she had never thought through properly. After they locked her in that tower, what exactly had been done to her? The story had gone off the rails from the start, but she should have wondered. In her memory, the palace erupts into chaos. Marius confines Rebecca with no warning at all. And after that, everything is white. Not one detail comes back. Perhaps that was why the memory had been cut. Alice sat by the bed feeding her water a spoonful at a time. Liliana swallowed with effort and made a small sound. She opened her eyes. Alice, am I going to die? Alice leaned down and looked at the child properly. No, you aren't. Take the medicine on time. And you'll be well soon. Liliana curled up under the heavy blankets and cried in small pieces. I don't want to die. Alice turned. Regina, the fever's too high. We have to bring it down before the doctor gets here. Help me wash her. Regina bit down on her lip and lost the fight with her eyes. Alice rolled up her sleeves, took the wet cloth, and worked it over skin that was burning. The child twisted in the delirium and moaned continuously. Cover me. I'm cold. I'm so cold. Regina could not hold it any longer. Liliana had never been ill since arriving. Regina had believed the climate here suited her. And now the fever wouldn't break. And she had been unconscious for days. Liliana opened her eyes weakly and the tears ran sideways. Across the room, Castle was talking quietly to someone. I've used healing magic, but healing magic only accelerates what the body can already do. While the illness is still there, the effect is limited, which meant Castle had come running before dawn to cast on her, and the talking had woken her. Because of it, she woke this morning with something like strength in her. She sat up in the enormous bed, cheeks packed with food. Alice sat on the edge, feeding her, and laid down the law. You are not going outside, and no playing. Liliana obediently took another mouthful. That isn't fair. I didn't decide to get ill. I didn't expect it either. According to Regina, she had talked in her sleep at the worst of it. What kind of illness did this to her? Liliana held up her own small, colorless hands. Endless fevers, a weakness that never lifted, and eating itself becoming difficult. She looked up at the sisters keeping watch and thought, they know what I have. They won't say, probably because I'm small. Seeing how worn they had become for her sake, she felt genuinely guilty. Her eyes went distant and stayed there. Liliana, Regina said gently, even if you don't want it, eat a little. That's how you get better. Liliana surfaced. I never said I didn't want it. I was thinking. Alice asked, what about? Liliana spread her arms. About starting on broccoli. So I grow up tall and strong with a magnificent constitution, like all of you. Regina laughed out loud. Heavens, this illness has aged you considerably. Cared for by the strongest people alive, she absolutely could not appear weak, which is why she pointed at the last of her vegetables. In that case, I won't be eating these 3 pieces of broccoli. Absolutely not, said Alice, all of it. I was up before sunrise making that for you. Then a bright knock at the door. Liliana's head came out of the blankets and she called for them to come in. The door eased open, and her eyes went wide at the small figure standing there. Ega hovered on the threshold, uneasy. Seeing Liliana try to get out of bed in that state, he shouted at her to lie down and not move. He crossed the room in about 3 strides and arrived at her pillow like weather. Are you all right? She hesitated, then said, a bit embarrassed, that she was better now. Ega stopped and put his face very close to hers, studying it. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders dropping. Liar. You're the color of a peeled boiled egg. She patted her own cheek, confused. I've always looked like this. He pulled something from behind his back. She looked at the cloth bag doubtfully. What is it? He drew out a handful of green branches and her eyes went wide. Olive branches with the fruit still on. A get-well present. The garden was closed for work before, so we couldn't get in. It opened again a few days ago. So I went in specially and broke these off for you. I haven't found a lemon tree yet, but you'll be the first to know. Liliana made a noise of pure delight and thanked him. Beside her, Regina's brow drew together. Lord Ega, did you say the garden was closed for work? Yes. They said they had flowers to plant, so we weren't allowed in. Liliana joined in. We wanted to play there. And when they wouldn't let us in, that's when we went over to the tower instead. At that, the faces of both her sisters changed, and the room went cold. Ega grew uneasy. Was an olive branch the wrong gift for a sick person? Regina produced a gentle smile. Not at all. I'm simply curious about that garden. I've lived in this palace and never once been inside it. Night came down. Moonlight lay flat across an empty corridor and heavy footsteps rang through it. A few days ago, I walked through that garden with Lord Leo and ran into Amelia there. They kept the children out deliberately. Mark stood in front of the door looking hunted. His Majesty is in a closed session with the Master of the Mage Tower. Please wait. And then something came off Alice that raised the hair on his arms. The pressure spread through the corridor like a physical thing. His pupils shrank and sweat came down his temple. Inside, Marius was talking. If not even Chobancha has records of it, there will be nothing here either. Since I arrived, I have turned out the Mage Tower, the palace, and every library in the capital. Nothing. We will have to make the cure ourselves. I'll fund all of it. Whatever anyone needs, if it produces a treatment. He heard movement and his head came up. Mark, I said nobody enters without my permission. Are you deaf? Get out, Mark said, shaking. That discussing Liliana without her guardian present seemed unwise. Marius saw who had come in, and something startled and unsteady crossed his face. Lady Alice. She stood in front of his desk without expression. Marius found somewhere else to look. Is Liliana all right? I thought Mark had come back in. Her fever has broken, Alice said flatly. The worst has passed. She's eating again and taking the medicine on time. Marius let out a breath. Then I'm relieved. A fever like that must have put the little thing through a great deal. You've had a hard time of it, Lady Alice. Alice looked at him in silence, and what came out of her eyes went to the bone. My sister had the hard time, not me. Then Alice swung, the fist came down through the air, and landed on the desk with a crack like a felled tree. Marius flinched back into his chair, solid hardwood split under it. He looked down at the firewood his desk had become, thought about it, and said calmly that he'd been meaning to replace it. And thank you for that. Shall we sit down and talk first? Alice's eyebrow went up and the anger came through anyway. Liliana is barred from that garden purely for being Chobanchan. Meanwhile, Regina and Duke Leo stroll through it every afternoon. Marius tilted his head and produced a mild smile. Is that so? I'll have the responsible party brought up. Would you prefer them flogged into permanent disability or 5 years imprisonment? Which would satisfy you more? Alice stopped. Normally, a person apologizes first. This one was casually shopping for a punishment. The face he wore around Liliana was one mask among many. And this version, the one that could watch a man bleed without a flicker of guilt, was probably the real one. Marius's mother Karen died of illness after giving birth to him, exactly as Princess Elizabeth had. Afterwards, the old emperor married Rosalind, who gave him 3 sons. When Marius took the throne at 17, Rosalind moved to depose him and put her eldest Lucas on it instead. The plot came apart quickly. Under imperial law, she and Lucas were both removed. Marius held out a hand to the younger brothers still living and said it very calmly, "Stay loyal to me, and I will protect your safety and your names for life. Don't betray me. I would genuinely rather not do it myself." That was the last warning those boys ever got. They walked into their Uncle Leopold's trap anyway, and into a fresh scramble for the throne. So Marius allied with Leopold, crushed the revolt, and then removed his brothers and his uncle with his own hands. When the blood dried, he was 19. After that, he took the view that family was a story people told themselves, so when the other thing happened, it didn't surprise him at all. Rain coming down in sheets, thunder low along the horizon, water running off a cold blade. Marius stood in it, soaked through, and looked straight ahead. Ega, do you understand what you're doing? Ega's hands tightened on the sword. Rain kept running down his face. I know exactly what it means to draw on you. Marius, knowing what follows, you still want this. I know precisely what it stands for. That's why I'm standing here. Lightning opened the sky. I hate you, Marius. Disappointment and betrayal braided together and froze solid. The betrayal did not come from a stranger. It came from Ega, the boy Marius had poured himself into raising. It left a wound that never closed. From that moment, Marius kept the boy at arm's length. Marius sat holding his own aching forearm. Corporal punishment would satisfy you more, wouldn't it? I agree with you. Bleed them and they'll learn fear. They won't try it again. Alice watched him. Mark has been investigating quietly and is planning a full purge of the household. He's been waiting for the right moment, and this may be an excellent one. When I heard how Liliana had been treated, I was genuinely enraged. And then I looked at you, Alice said, and seeing someone with even less self-control than me sobered me up immediately. Hostility towards a foreign empress was predictable. I can manage that. When it touches Liliana, it is a different matter. I will not watch that child be humiliated in public. She put a hand on her chest. Appointment, dismissal, and discipline. Give me those powers, and I will settle all of it personally. Marius considered it. She would hold them as empress anyway, and the wedding was close. There was no harm in it now. Metal clicked. He put a finely worked seal into her hand. That is the empress's seal. You may as well have it early. Alice took it. Thank you. And I'll settle Lord Ega's situation at the same time. At that name, something moved through him. Ega, why? Because he was barred from the garden too. Marius stayed in his chair and worked at keeping his face still. We aren't even married. You have no obligation to that boy. Alice turned her head, and the look she gave him was cold enough to press on the skin. And after we are married? He stared. How had she seen it? He couldn't help asking. How did you know? She stopped at the door. It wasn't difficult. The way you look at Liliana and the way you look at Lord Ega are not the same thing. Marius looked away, embarrassed, and laughed without any humor. That's unfortunate. I thought I'd hidden it. Lady Alice, it would be wise not to become too attached to the child. Over the next 10 years, you may not see her many times. Alice didn't answer. She put her hand on the heavy door handle. What frightens me is becoming an adult who ignores the children beside her out of fear. Some things are as simple as saying goodbye. Clean out your household. I'd rather we never speak about anything this ugly again. The door clicked shut behind her. Marius stood alone in the huge room thinking about that strength. That back that never gave ground, that ability to carry everything. It would be a fine thing to have any of it. At the same hour, in Alice's rooms, Liliana sat up in a tall chair, working on a biscuit. She looked at Castle across the table. Thank you for making me better. Castle rested his chin on one hand and watched her. And how do you feel now? She nodded hard. Completely well. In a few days I can go and see the knights. Wonderful, he said. Being well means you can start on the magic tonic again. Her face collapsed. I don't want it. Could I pretend to drink it and have grape juice instead? You still don't understand what goes into making those. So you will drink every drop, so your body gets stronger. That's how you grow up. She looked down and turned the biscuit over in her fingers. Except I probably won't grow up. Castle's expression locked. He stared at her. Why would you say that? Had she worked something out? She went on eating. What do I mean? I'm ill all the time. He said it seriously. I am going to give you your health back. All you have to do is eat well and play as much as you like. Liliana went still. There was no hope in her face and no surprise either. Getting better had simply never occurred to her. Castle looked at her for a long moment. I may not be the kindest man alive, but even I feel something when I look at a small creature like that. Liliana was a lovely child, and a lovely piece on a board, a piece belonging to all of us, and the most important work any of us will ever produce. I would truly like to stop feeling this tearing sensation about using a child. And he sighed, but that is difficult, extremely difficult. That night, Castle came into the great hall. Everyone was already there. Is Liliana asleep? She seemed exhausted, Alice said from the sofa. I put her to bed. Castle looked around the room and stopped on Amelia's worn-out face. She looked wrecked. Where family affection was concerned, this lot did not hold back. Regina sighed. So why have you called us here? Castle came back to himself. I've gathered you to discuss Liliana's health. Amelia and I have been researching her illness. Alice sat up. I thought you hired Amelia as an assistant. Castle glanced at Marius. That was the public reason for the appointment. I brought her here to work on Liliana's condition. We have spent every day since buried in what the two of us could collect. Amelia rubbed her forehead. I'm studying medicine on top of it. There's a great deal to get through. But that isn't the point. She looked up and her eyes had gone hard. We have found what is actually wrong with her. Both sisters startled. What? It isn't an autoimmune condition? In an empire this advanced, surely the research would. Castle shook his head. I'm afraid it isn't an immune problem. Every drug she has ever taken has done nothing. There is no protocol for this and no data. Amelia pressed her fingers to her temple. Her condition is exceptionally rare. Even the Empire has never recorded a case. Alice's fist closed and the porcelain cup went to fragments across the floor. The cold coming off her filled the room. Amelia, you will stand behind what you just said. Amelia took a breath. Every child with these symptoms comes from Chobancha, so at first I assumed a local infectious disease. But if it were, the drugs would work and nothing has changed at all. Alice. You remember, in Chobancha, most children with this recover by themselves once they reach a certain age. Alice's voice went rough. I know, and the ones who don't recover simply weaken and waste, and the overwhelming majority of them die at around 14. 14 is the line between recovery and burning out, Amelia said heavily. It's also the age Chobanchan children awaken. Every one of them goes through an awakening fever, mild or severe. Not everyone survives it to reach their gift. Only those who come through the fever can ever use that power freely. The gift is born in you. No amount of training produces it. But before the awakening, nobody can direct it because a child's body isn't finished enough to carry it. The awakening fever is a growing pain, Castle went on. Latent ability erupting during adolescence. Liliana is inside that fever now. Regina stared. What are you telling us? The gift buried in her is too large and too heavy, Castle said. Before her body is finished, that power has already begun leaking out. Her body cannot hold it. That is what is burning her and damaging her organs. Everyone in the Barrico bloodline is born with a formidable gift, so Liliana will be no exception. She is carrying an enormous amount of power. Alice's teeth came together. And, before the awakening, what use is any of it? So, Emilia said, looking up. What we have to do is keep Liliana alive until the awakening fever actually starts. Exactly as Lady Emilia says, Castle added, though getting her to adolescence will be brutal. Regina put a hand over her mouth, her eyes full of it. As her body grows, the gift grows with it. Right now it's fevers. Later it will be. Enough. Alice cut her off and shut her eyes. I know exactly what comes later. I know it better than any of you. And even so, there is nothing I can do about it, which is the unbearable part. Then what do we do? Regina said. From here we find a way, said Emilia. Now that we know the cause, I'm confident we'll find a treatment. Alice said her name quietly. You are the finest researcher of gifts alive. Lord Castle is the leading scholar of magic. I need the two of you working together. I can't do any of it myself, so I am putting this in your hands. I trust you both. Emilia looked at the calloused hand held out to her, and something warm went through her. Alice. Beside them, Castle's mouth curled into something with a second meaning. Don't worry. He took Alice's hand. Liliana will reach her awakening safely, for your sake, and for my own purposes. Emilia's head snapped round. Who invited you into this? Castle looked wounded. She mentioned me by name. Don't make me laugh, you're an accessory. A maid asked gently whether Lady Liliana would like her hair brushed. Liliana jumped. No, thank you, really. The maids closed in, beaming. Don't be like that. It takes a minute. Leave it to us. Liliana made a small sound of alarm, surrounded by enthusiasm. She thought about it. When she first came to the Empire, the sneering servants had quietly disappeared. A few days ago, a completely new set of maids had been assigned to her. One knelt and put her shoes on for her. Unlike the others, these people looked after every inch of her. They treated her like an actual princess. Someone put her shoes on. Not even her sisters had ever had this. She rather hoped they would go the way of the last lot. For a 6-year-old, the enthusiasm was too much to survive. Footsteps in the corridor. The door banged open. Ega stood in it, shouting. How long are you planning to stay in there? Lady Alice is already waiting. Liliana floundered. Hold on. I haven't got my shoes on. Ega came straight in, then put them on. Liliana made a noise of protest as he took the shoe out of the maid's hand and grabbed her ankle and jammed her foot into it without a word. He dusted off his hands. Done. Let's go. Liliana stared at him. When she was ill in bed, he had been perfectly gentle. Where had this come from? Because today was the day they had waited for. They were visiting the knights. In front of the great gate, Leo stood in dress uniform and looked magnificent. Liliana squealed, Lord Leo, you look incredible. I'm so proud of my good friend. Ega swelled up too. My cousin's amazing, isn't he? Leo thanked her embarrassed, then looked up past both children and stopped. Regina was standing on the steps, head slightly bowed, with a soft smile on her mouth. Leo went scarlet in 1 second. Alice registered all of it, and her look sharpened. Under it, Leo went rigid. He dropped his eyes fast, swallowed his panic, and stammered a welcome. Allow me to show you inside. They passed under the great arch into the training yard. Ega took a breath and put both hands over his mouth, eyes shining. Incredible. Rank on rank of knights stood in the yard, dressed perfectly. This really wasn't necessary, Alice said. There was no need to assemble everyone. Leo bowed slightly. It's no trouble. The royal wedding is 1 month away. Receiving you formally is simply correct. Heavy footsteps approached, each one landing like a statement. Liliana tipped her head back and said, wow, out loud. This is Derek, said Leo. Deputy Commander. Liliana thought, he's enormous. Derek bowed with perfect courtesy. It's an honor. Liliana's neck hurt from looking up. Alice answered evenly. Likewise. I'm Alice. These are my sisters, Regina and Liliana. Regina smiled brightly. I've heard a great deal about you. You live up to every word of it. Derek laughed easily. You're too kind. The air here is nothing like Chobancha. You come from somewhere very free. You may find our discipline hard to adjust to. I do hope you enjoy your stay. Liliana blinked. That was odd. Every word was polite, and something underneath it had an edge on. She looked at her sisters. Neither Alice nor Regina reacted at all. Perhaps she'd imagined it. She had assumed this was an ordinary tour, right up until the next moment. Walking the corridor, Alice asked Leo whether the cavalry fell under the knights as well. I'd assumed they were kept separate for the sake of specialization. They were, Leo explained patiently. But in emergencies, the chain of command became impossible, so we merged them. I see. Derek's brows rose. You seem very familiar with our structure. Did you serve in the maritime police? I did, Alice said calmly. The work is remarkably similar. Across the yard, Ego was circling an enormous siege crossbow, making noises about the size of it. Liliana leaned in and poked the frame with one finger. Derek pressed on. And what were you responsible for at the time? I was director of the Security Bureau of the Maritime Police. Derek tilted his head. That's the Public Order Division, isn't it? That's right, Alice said, and something cold went through her eyes, and her mouth curved. Rather than civil order, we concentrated on national security. The smile left Derek's face. He stared at her, and the corridor went tight. Then he made a small, contemptuous sound. So as a woman, you were handling work of equal standing to a knight, or were you doing the paperwork? The air set solid, and the cold ran the length of the hall. Liliana went white. This was very bad. This was the end of somebody. Alice lowered her head, and her mouth made a cold shape. In that case, would you like me to demonstrate? Derek froze. What? Alice stepped forward. I've always wondered how the Empire's knights handle a blade. Before I was the Emperor's bride, I commanded an anti-piracy force. Naturally, I'm curious about the Sun Knights. Derek was backing up, waving both hands. Lady Alice, you are a woman, and I am a knight. How could I draw on a lady? A lady I'm sworn to protect, no less. Please don't joke. Alice smiled and cut him off. On a battlefield, there are no men and women. There are allies and enemies, the strong and the weak. That's all. There were exactly two things nobody was permitted to insult in front of Liliana's eldest sister. Her sister's health and her own career. Alice had made Director of Maritime Security absurdly young. She had gone into Stormwater after pirates more times than anyone had counted, risking her life over and over to keep murderers off her country's coast. And this rude object in front of her had chosen the ugliest available way to insult her. Liliana hauled on Regina's skirt. Who's stronger, the Maritime Police or the Sun Knights? Regina covered her mouth, surprised and delighted at once. It doesn't matter who's stronger. Alice can beat anyone. She won the Chobancha Swordsmanship Championship. Liliana turned to Aga. Don't you want to see Alice fight Sir Derek? The excitement transferred instantly. I do. Hearing all this, Derek's body locked up. Liliana clapped, delighted. Sir Derek, Alice could fold you in half. I've built the stage for her. The rest is up to my sister. You're about to learn what happens to people who annoy her. Rude, horrible man. Liliana opened wide and took an enormous bite of biscuit, loudly. She and Ega sat side by side on a bench. He turned to her. So how strong is Lady Alice, really? Liliana answered around the biscuit. She can take on a pirate crew and a smuggling ring by herself. I've told you this repeatedly. Alice walked out with a steady stride. In the original story, she died in the war Marius started, and not because she was weak. She died throwing herself in front of a young soldier. Without that, she would have become the strongest person in the world. From the far end of the bench, Marius spoke. Little Bean. You really think Lady Alice wins this? Obviously, Liliana shouted, both arms in the air. Then she shrieked and folded in on herself. Alice looked back at the bench, at the man sitting on it, who had already decided exactly how this marriage ended. Liliana recovered enough to speak. How long have you been sitting there? I missed you so much I flew here in the middle of work. Little mushroom, didn't you miss me? She turned her face away in disgust. Not remotely. Marius made a wounded noise. The truth is brutal. Getting close to you will take at least another decade. Regina came gliding up and greeted the Emperor, and Liliana squealed. Regina opened her arms and gathered her in. Come here, Lily. Do you mind sharing with me? Wonderful, Liliana said. Marius stood and surrendered the seat. Beside them, Ega had not said a word. Both of his hands were closed into fists. Regina looked out at the yard. They're starting. I only hope Alice doesn't get carried away. In the center, a young soldier stepped up and offered a longsword. Please use this one. Derek rested his weight on a heavy blade and looked at the woman opposite. I won't be fighting seriously. You are His Majesty's bride and a lady. Drawing on someone I'm sworn to protect is frankly humiliating. Alice let the bait sit where it fell. She closed her hand on the grip, brought the point up, and breathed in. Ready? Leo raised his voice. Then the match begins. Steel met steel, and the sound went round the whole yard. It was dangerous inside 5 seconds. Derek was hedging. He had badly underestimated the woman in front of him. Alice, meanwhile, was calmly baiting him. She swung again, and the blade drew a bright curve through the air. He set his teeth and took it, sweating. She slid around his flank and cut horizontally. Derek got his blade up and discovered the cut had been a lie. Alice's boot came round and took him on the ankle. He made a noise and staggered backwards. She walked straight through it. Sir Derek, your lower body is weak. I could teach you some exercises if you'd like. His face went red with rage and humiliation together, and his whole body shook. Under the weight of the assault, Derek finally stopped condescending and began fighting for his life. The watching soldiers had their mouths open. Liliana was punching the air. Ega watched every second of it, and in the end, Derek was on his knees gasping with a very cold point resting against his throat. It finished as a rout. The cheer that went up hit the walls like weather. Marius applauded and whistled and shouted that it was magnificent. Alice sheathed the blade and smiled down at him. An interesting match. Derek knelt in his own sweat, and what was in his eyes now was fear. Wait. They say you have a gift. Just now. You didn't use it, did you? Alice smiled and took her time. Of course not. For a match of that standard, I had no need of it. Honestly, Liliana understood why Derek had been frightened out of his skin. Her mother's family ran in all of them, and Alice was the most like their mother. She had trained through something brutal to end up commanding maritime security for Chobancha. Liliana closed her eyes, satisfied. If Alice ever went all the way, even Leo would not be a match for her. Ega, wasn't that incredible? Alice is the best there is. What? Ega was already sprinting across the yard to Alice. He clasped both hands to his chest with his eyes shining. Lady Alice, how are you that strong? I want to be a warrior like you. Watching from a distance, Leo laughed out loud. Look at him. Then the laugh stopped. Marius was sitting very still, hands folded on his knee. His eyes were cold and fixed straight ahead, and the pressure coming off him was frightening. Leo's smile went away. Wait, you aren't seriously. Liliana put a small hand up and hammered on the door. Ega, let's go and play. The corridor was completely silent. Nothing came back. She tipped her head, puzzled. Was he asleep? She pushed the heavy door open and put her head around it. She was about to call out when she heard the sobbing. Deep in the room, on the huge bed, Ega was curled up under the covers, making small broken sounds. Liliana froze in the doorway. Then she ran to the bed. Why are you crying? Did somebody hurt you? What happened? Ega gripped the blanket and pulled it over his head. Go away. I want to be alone. She circled the bed, frantic. Don't cry, Ega. Are you ill? Where does it hurt? Is it your stomach? A fever? The crying only got worse. She climbed onto the bed and edged towards the pile of blankets. Please stop. I'm sorry, do you want me to blow on it? Should I fetch a doctor? The answer came out in pieces. I worked it out. Marius. He doesn't like me at all. Earlier, Ega had run the length of the corridor. After Lady Alice's match, I went to find him. I was going to tell him I didn't want him teaching me the sword anymore. I put my hand out to push the door open, and I could hear talking inside. Marius. I'm not speaking as a sworn subject right now. I'm speaking as your friend, and as the person who stands for Ega. His hand stopped in the air. It was Leo in there. He was with Marius. Leo was saying that he had to stop suspecting the boy. This looks appalling. Marius stood with his back to him, hands clasped, staring out the window. You're his guardian. You're his cousin, and he is 6 years old. Get rid of that idea. He is nothing like your brothers or your dead uncle. Think of Princess Elizabeth. We promised her we would raise her son as our own blood. Enough, Marius said, cutting across him. I don't want to hear it. Leo was quiet a moment. Don't tell me you're frightened of a child. He's your cousin. He's a boy. Marius didn't answer. Then play the part of the good brother properly. Don't hand it to me. And the Emperor's voice came back cold and final. No. Aga, breathing hard in the corridor, heard it. I will not put my faith in someone who will only ever betray me in the end. Fragments went through Marius's head. If the child I poured everything into turns on me, I don't believe I could survive it a second time. I know that one day that boy will point a sword at me. Marius doesn't trust me. He doesn't even like me. Evening light came into the bedroom. Iga lay curled on the enormous bed while Liliana patted his back. He kept his face in the blanket. His voice came out muffled. Don't tell anyone I cried today. She took a fistful of his shirt and answered seriously, I won't tell anyone. I promise. He sniffed. All right. Liliana looked at him and hesitated. But are you sure? He's right. He hates me. I heard him say it with my own ears, so it's true. Liliana went still. Her eyes filled up with it. Then she put both arms around him. He jumped at the sudden contact. What? She held on. That must have hurt. My brother's the same, actually. Aga blinked. He stopped moving entirely. You have a brother? My eldest. Andrew. He hates me now. One day he just moved out to the countryside. She put her face into his shoulder and her voice went small. Now he won't even answer my letters properly. He won't see me either. Aga said nothing and let her hold on. Are you sad about not having parents? Yes, I love my sisters, but I still want a mother and a father. What about you? Same, he said quietly. The same. I'd like my mother here at least. The two children held onto each other in the middle of the enormous bed, while small broken sounds filled the room. For orphans like them, an older sibling is a parent. Andrew had not simply been a brother. He had loved her the way a man loves his own daughter. Back then, when the nursery held its Father's Day, Andrew always came in place of one. On wet days, they shared an umbrella and he would crouch down beside her to watch snails cross the garden. He used to hold her in his lap and read her fairy tales. She loved the warmth of leaning back against him. So whatever Andrew thought of her now, Liliana could not stop loving him. So Marius was a father to Iga, the way Andrew had been to her. Which was exactly why it had cut this deep. A tear came down Liliana's face. She whispered it into his shoulder. If Marius doesn't like you, then I'll like you twice as much. I don't want you hurting. So stop crying, Iga. Leo went down the corridor with heavy feet. That stupid man knows how to make me furious. I still don't understand what he's so afraid of, but fine. If he intends to keep this up, I'll simply give Iga more of my own attention. He pushed the door open. Lady Regina, I didn't know you were here. Regina jumped and dropped her eyes. I've only just arrived. Actually, there's something I need to say to you. He stopped, one hand on the back of a chair. What is it? Say it plainly. She looked down, and it took her a long time to produce a single word. And something went through Leo's chest and closed. Sensitive people sometimes have a terrible accuracy. Why do I have such a bad feeling? He tried to break the silence. He sat up straighter, awkward. There's a concert this weekend, a famous singer. I managed to get tickets. Would you come with me? I'm sorry. Regina raised her head with her eyes swimming. Lord Leo, I've thought about it a great deal. I think we have to end this here. Leo stood rooted where he was. His worst instincts had always been unnaturally accurate. Night came down and the palace burned with light and looked more solemn for it. Iga's birthday party went ahead as planned. Liliana clutched an extremely fancy stuffed rabbit. This place is amazing. It really is spectacular, Regina agreed. With Alice attending Marius, Regina brought Liliana into the hall. Normally, she would have spent days choosing the perfect present. Lately, though, she had been so busy working on Marius that she had forgotten entirely. She had thrown something together at the last minute, which was surely fine. She scanned the hall with high hopes. First, find the boy of the hour. There, Lord Leo's height made it easy. She trotted over with the rabbit, Aga, and then, a few steps out, she stopped. Something heavy and dark came off the pair of them. Leo's head was down, and the despair coming off him made the air thick. Beside him, Aga looked the same. Why did Aga look like that at his own birthday party? And Lord Leo, too? Leo turned his face slightly. and something complicated moved in his eyes. I think we should end it. If we go any further, it puts Alice in an impossible position. Leo felt the floor tilt. What does any of this have to do with Lady Alice? Regina paused. And if we separated? His chest closed up. He stared at her. Why would you think that? It absolutely will not happen. We are not separating. I understand what worries you, and you don't need to carry it. I'll try harder. So please don't. Regina let out a breath. You're of an age to marry. I'm told imperial nobles are expected to produce an heir, but I don't intend to marry. Who decided I must? If I never marry, my title and everything the family owns can go to Aga. No, Regina said, cutting him off. Her hands closed on her skirt. I'm sorry, I don't think I can do this anymore. The warmth went out of it. What was left between them could not be crossed. Liliana watched all of it, tense. Had something happened between her sister and him? Regina looked flustered. No, nothing at all. Then Aga's head came up and the gloom vanished off him. Hey. Happy birthday, Aga. He came straight over. You should have told me you were here sooner. He looked her outfit up and down. You've dressed up especially, haven't you? Liliana spun on the spot. Well, isn't it lovely? He looked at her, slightly dazed. You look like a squirrel. She giggled. I do think I'm rather sweet. No. He added it gravely. You look like a pumpkin squirrel. The smile went off her face. What? Did you just say? She was working up to it when she remembered it was his birthday and swallowed it. In honor of your birthday, I'll let it go. She waved a hand. It's nothing. And just then, the great doors opened and a servant announced His Majesty the Emperor and Lady Alice Barrico. Every eye in the room went to the door. Marius walked in with Alice on his arm, and the murmuring started immediately. Liliana couldn't blink. She told herself she wasn't saying this out of family loyalty, but Alice tonight was beyond description. She glanced at the man beside her, and found he had cleaned up rather magnificently too, into something quite unlike his usual self. She pulled at Aga's arm. Aga, look at my sister, isn't she completely... Aga stood absolutely still, eyes down, face empty. Marius spoke from the center of the hall. Thank you all for coming to celebrate Aga's birthday. The royal wedding is close, but I would never miss the birthday of my only younger brother. Lady Alice and I will marry on the 15th of next month. The details will be announced tomorrow morning, so tonight, please enjoy yourselves. The room broke into noise. The guests put their heads together, and the whispering ran along every wall. Liliana withdrew into a corner and held the rabbit against her chest. Marius walked over to Aga. There you are. Happy birthday. Aga, I take it you've opened my present? Aga bowed slightly and answered flatly. Yes, I thank His Majesty for his kind words. Marius frowned at a loss. Why so formal? Speak to me the way you always have. I don't know what I've done to anger you, but it's time you let it go. Aga kept his head down and his jaw locked, and the thing in his chest boiled over. Your Majesty, you are not my brother. Marius stopped dead. What are you talking about? Of course I'm your... And Aga's voice came out cold and shaking. I heard all of it. The color left Marius's face. He stood there and produced nothing. Aga looked straight at him and spaced the words out. You told Leo to be my brother, because you didn't want to be. Aga, listen to me. I'm sorry. Aga cut him off, took Liliana by the hand, and walked. Marius stayed where he was. Liliana yelped, Aga, wait. She looked at the back of his head and her chest hurt. He must be in so much pain right now. She had to say it to him. She took a breath. Aga, I'll be on your side. Always. Hey, a voice cut across her. Liliana stopped and turned, surprised. A red-haired girl stood a little way off. You're the one from Chobansha, aren't you? The girl tilted her head, and her expression turned serious and strange. I heard Chobanshans eat people. Is that true? Liliana straightened up. What? Creed was hiding behind Helen, shaking. Do you really eat people? Iga snorted. Rubbish, where exactly did you hear that? Liliana said nothing and tightened her arms around the rabbit. What was wrong with these people? They never opened their mouths without calling her lot savages. They looked at her like a monster. Shut up and go away, she muttered. Then, how did you know we really do eat people? Iga blinked. What? Well, if we've come this far, Liliana went on, did you know? Children are soft and tender, so they taste even better. Something in her face changed. And she gave them a truly horrible smile. That's right, they go down like butter. Helen screamed, "You'll be sorry for this." Then Helen turned and ran like weather and was gone down the corridor. Creed, abandoned, went down on the floor. "Helen, you left me here." He looked up shaking, eyes streaming, and stared at Liliana in terror. Liliana looked down at him with her face set and something cold coming off her. Creed dissolved, "Please don't eat me. Please, please don't eat me." The screaming startled her badly. What's the matter with him? Iga shrugged. No idea. Liliana's voice went slightly guilty. Look, come on. Why would I eat you? That was a joke. Creed shouted it back through the sobbing. But you said I was delicious. I'm not delicious at all. She waved both hands at him. Stop crying. Besides, I haven't even tasted you. Do Imperial children cry about this sort of thing? Liliana sighed. Where I come from, you cry if a jellyfish stings you. Not over this. Now she had genuinely made a mess. She put out a hand to comfort the terrified boy. A lady in full formal dress came gliding towards them. Creed, why are you crying? Iga saw who it was, and said very quietly that they were finished. The Duchess Burke, and Creed had already started telling her everything. He said he wants to eat me. Tell him not to eat me. I'm not delicious. The Duchess crouched and gathered Creed in, gentle as anything. Nobody is going to hurt you. Dry your eyes, you mustn't cry over something this small. Liliana hurried to agree with her. She's quite right. It was only a joke. There's really no need to cry. And the Duchess's eyes went cold and narrow. Her arm came round and the slap cracked down the length of the corridor. Iga went silent. He stood and stared at what had just happened. The Duchess struck Liliana's hand away from the boy, and what was in her face was disgust. Liliana stood there frozen. The Duchess narrowed her eyes and clicked her tongue. Get your filthy hand off, Creed. Now apologize. Or shall I have you removed from this palace tonight? Lightning opened the sky and lit the astonishment on the Emperor's face. Blood went out into the rain. Iga's pupils shrank down to points. Marius stood where he was. His shoulder was laid open, and it would not stop running. The sword began shaking in Iga's hand. Why? Why didn't you move? To understand that question, go back to a palace corridor and a duchess's hand. Inside the ballroom, the noise went on, guests moving, laughter everywhere. A few ladies had gathered. One smiled. Such a long journey. You must be exhausted. Heavens, you really are a beauty. Another joined in. No wonder His Majesty went to Chobancha himself to collect you. Their fans moved steadily. And underneath the tone was a question with a hook in it. How are you finding the Empire? Compared with Chobancha, our rules and our etiquette must feel terribly restrictive, difficult to adjust to. Though with your sisters here, you can hardly be lonely. It is unusual bringing that many relatives. Still, why not stay? Somewhere this advanced is not easily found. Alice closed her eyes. Personally, I enjoy admiring foreign manners every single day. In one corner, Marius leaned on a balustrade with a glass in his hand, watching. Aren't you going to help her? Leo said quietly. She has to establish her own authority. If I step in now, it only makes her look weaker. Besides, she is an empress forever. The term is 10 years. Leo frowned. What are you talking about? 10 years is a very long time. Marius said nothing. Marius, has something happened? He looked away and lowered his voice. Do you remember what we said on the day Lady Alice visited the knights? I think Iga overheard it. Children, however small, can always tell when an adult is keeping his distance on purpose. And Iga feels more than most children do. He actually heard it. He turned 7 today. Leo's teeth came together audibly. From the moment you decided to keep your distance, you were already hurting him. Leo walked off into the hall without looking back. I'll take Iga to the ducal estate soon. After that, stay out of his life. He turned his face away, and his eyes had settled. As you said yourself, you're not his brother, you aren't anything to him. Marius's hand closed on the glass and it began to sing. Then it went all at once. That day, the rain came down hard enough to drown the palace. Where is the tower master? Lord Francois is unavailable, so he probably hasn't had the report. We have to handle this before he finds out. If that man gets involved, even Iga will be in danger. What do you intend to do? Marius stopped, and something absolute came into his eyes. I'll punish the boy myself. A month's confinement. Or send him to the country for a while. Either way, I have to get in ahead of the Tower Master to keep him alive. Mark had reported that Ega was trying to get Liliana out of the Mage Tower, out of the palace entirely. By then, Castle's fixation on Liliana had gone very close to madness. Marius had to move fast because he was certain that if he did nothing, Castle would actually kill the boy. All of it had started as a promise made to Princess Elizabeth. But somewhere along the way, he had come to love that small, fragile thing beyond saving. What had grown in him was something close to a father's love, and Ega had pointed a blade at him anyway. Marius braced against the rain and roared his name. Why have you done all this over a girl? Ega's teeth were locked. Her name is Liliana. What? Something red came up in the boy's eyes and he emptied his lungs. That is her name. Liliana. At the time, Marius could not have cared less what the girl in the tower was called. He set his jaw against the weight coming down through the blade. So you intend to put this on me? He held his ground and looked the boy in the face. Leo taking his own life was not my doing. Because the source of all of it was Rebecca. The filthy scheme she ran for revenge dragged every one of them into the mud. She used that vial of potion to deceive all of them, Leo included, Castle included. And out of all of us, Leo took it hardest. He could not live with what the potion had made him do, and it was unforgivable. So Leo left a letter for Ega and ended it himself. I hate you to the bone, Marius. Marius shouted through the rain, I won every one of those things for you. Why would you say that? Ega laughed at him. Yes, I know you tried your hardest. And then something came out of him that sounded unhinged. Marius, your hardest meant murdering innocent people over some wretched infatuation. You and Leo both went insane. So what, do you plan to kill me? Ega didn't answer. He only tightened his grip in the rain, if it comes to that. The blade tore the air with a sound like tearing cloth. Ega swung. The two blades scraped past each other with a noise that hurt. Ega went backwards and landed in the mud. The sword came out of his hand and turned uselessly in the air. Lightning ripped the sky and lit the whole forest white. Thunder came back off the cliffs. Ega went down onto his knees in the water, out of strength. Let it end here. From the moment you went for my life, you became a traitor, Ega answered calmly. I know. I always knew it would end this way. So don't harm Liliana. Don't harm anyone else. Let it stop with me. And on that final day, I still could not bring myself to do it. I have always thought, I could never be like Alice and spend my whole life loving that child. But you were once the only thing in my life worth anything. I wanted to go down to that cell every single day and scream at you. Why did you point it at me? What did you actually want? And even so, I chose to keep my distance. Because it frightened me. The thing hammering in my chest, the ache underneath it, had never once gone away. 6 months on, that wound is nowhere near closing. Let go of Creed and apologize this instant, the Duchess said. Liliana stumbled backwards with her wrist singing. It hurt. What had just happened? I only wanted to tell him to stop crying. Duchess, what exactly do you think you're doing? Ega came forward with his voice raised. She shielded the boy behind her and argued it flatly. I am protecting Creed, nothing more. It was a joke. Liliana was crying openly now. His friend started it. She asked me whether I ate people. The Duchess answered without warmth, which apparently means nobody ever taught you how to apologize. Liliana looked at the back of her own hand, swollen red. You're an adult and you struck a child's hand. You're worse than I am. Ega put both arms out in front of her. This is entirely your doing. Is this how you treat guests of Chobancha? The Duchess looked down at him. Lord Ega, you are very young, and there are things you don't yet understand. You should choose your friends with care. Creed was shaking. Please stop. How could she say things like that? If I were a healthy adult, would she dare treat me this way? No elder in Chobancha ever spoke to me like this. Liliana sobbed it out. I want to go home. Running footsteps. Leo came into the hall fast. What is going on here? The Duchess changed the moment she saw him. Your Grace, you've come at the perfect moment. This child threatened Creed, so I was correcting her. Leo looked at the boy hiding behind her. Creed. That's right, she said. Creed, grandson of Count Lumen. Liliana's voice went up. His friend asked me first. She asked whether I ate people. So I teased them, and that woman did this to my hand. Leo looked down at the small, swollen hand. His brows came together and something violent moved behind his eyes, held down. When he spoke, it was cold. You have gone too far. How could you strike a child that hard? She talked her way around it. The one going too far is His Majesty's bride. She hasn't taught her own sister the most basic courtesies. Leo's voice came up. She is 6 years old. Do you genuinely believe striking a child's hand like that is correct? And another thing. Why are you dragging His Majesty's bride into this? The Duchess set her teeth, savage and rattled at once. Perhaps you should rely more on the Duchess Egloy. If she were here, she would never allow a foreign child to raise her voice here. She took Creed's hand, and that name would cost her everything within the year. Liliana had a fistful of Leo's coat and was hiccuping into it. Leo let out a long breath, then bent and lifted her. I'm sorry. She put her face into his shoulder and wailed. I miss my sisters. Where is Alice? Where are Regina and Amelia? Why is it that when I want them, they're never there? I want to go home. Take me home. Leo said nothing and patted her back with one enormous hand. He was very gentle, and the arms around her were warm. And from beginning to end, he never once said that he could take her home. In that moment, what came off Leo went strangely cold, and it made him look very far away. He held a piece of chocolate to her mouth. Here, open. She obediently opened. Leo walked the two children out. Liliana looked up at him. Sir, whatever happens, please don't tell my sisters about this. They already worry themselves sick over me. They check me for fever every single day. If they knew I'd been fussy about food today as well, I'd feel terrible about it. Leo looked at her and laughed under his breath. All right, I won't tell them. Thank you. Ega suggested they go out to the garden instead of back to the party. The people in there only smile falsely and say things they don't mean. He took her hand and shouted that they were off. The two of them ran up to a tree loaded with fruit. Liliana made a sound of astonishment. It's a real lemon tree. How did you find this? The gardener wouldn't tell us anything last time. Ega laced his hands behind his head. That lot got 10 years. The new gardeners want to be liked, so they told me exactly where it was. Liliana stopped. 10 years for what? He waved it away. Nothing. Don't worry about it. Which reminds me, your eyes have swollen up. You look like an enormous pumpkin. She tipped her head back and looked at the lemons through the leaves. It wasn't as big as the trees at home, but it threw enough shade for two children to sit under. Antonio and I used to hide under a lemon tree exactly like this. My home is always warm, and everything is cooked in olive oil and bay leaves. It's a country that tastes of the sea. She had already been homesick, and today had made it much worse. If this went on, what was she supposed to do? She counted the days in her head. To finish the 10 years promised to Marius, how much longer did she have to stay? Ega watched her thinking, then asked what was on her mind. She jumped. Then she went rigid. Something was missing. It was his birthday. Liliana came straight off the ground. Ega. Ega startled. What? She held her head in both hands, appalled at herself. I've lost my mind. She had wished him a happy birthday earlier and then forgotten the cake entirely. Happy birthday. You should be standing in front of a cake blowing out candles right now. Instead, you're out here because of me. Ega sat up. How is any of it your fault? It's that idiot Helen Eldridge and that coward Creed Lumen. But there was so much good food at the party. Presents piled to the ceiling. Just looking at all that should cheer anyone up. He made a proud noise. Everyone who came today is an idiot. There's nobody in there I actually wanted to see. Liliana was surprised. Aren't they your friends? Ega reacted as though she'd stood on his foot. What? Helen and Creed are not my friends. They're a pack of idiots. Then something occurred to her. I haven't got you a present. But since a birthday present matters this much, I'll give you my treasure. Ega blinked. Your treasure? She held out the rabbit with both hands. Take him. This is my little brother. Whenever you're frightened or sad, hold Biscuit and you'll feel much better. Ega took a step back, flustered. You'd hand over your own brother, just like that? She was extremely serious about it. Promise me you'll take good care of Biscuit. He took the rabbit awkwardly and looked down at it, then back up at her. He probably hates it, she thought. I cried all over that rabbit earlier. If someone gave me a soaking wet doll, I'd hate it too. She said it timidly. If you don't like it, I can find you something better. Ega cut across her. I like it. He held the rabbit against him and produced an enormous grin. This is the best present I got today. Liliana stared at him, completely thrown. And oddly, seeing him smile like that, she realized she had forgotten everything unpleasant that had happened, a week after Egga's birthday. Egga stood scratching his head, asking her with resignation whether she was crying again. Liliana turned her face away and sniffed. Certainly not. I'm not a baby. I'll never cry about an injection again. Egga leaned in with a wicked grin. Did you know that if you lie, horns grow out of your backside? She said that was rubbish, and then turned around anyway, and checked. No horns. She'd known he was lying. She had cried, but she felt she had grounds. She had been swallowing that vile medicine when Amelia appeared from nowhere and took her blood with a needle without saying a word. Castle came running to smooth it over, apologizing while conjuring a glowing squirrel to distract her. She knew they meant well. Making her drink it and then ambushing her with a needle was still too much. She could barely stand up. This was simply cruelty. I'm never speaking to either of them again. Egga looked at the state of her and sighed, then dug a sweet out of his pocket and threw it. Have that. You've just had the horrible one, haven't you? Her eyes went bright as she caught it. A sweet. For me? Egga, you're the best. You're 1,000 times better than Amelia. His cheeks went slightly pink. Naturally, I'm the best. He had been remarkably considerate lately. That week had not been kind to him either. Marius had tried repeatedly to talk to him, and the boy would not even meet his eyes. And Leo kept insisting on moving Egga out to the ducal estate. Liliana stopped walking. Egga, are you really going to live at the estate, like Leo said? He was quiet for a moment. What do you want me to do? She thought about it properly. Well, if you go to the estate, we can't play together every day anymore. Can we? The two of them walked along the fountain. Then a voice went off nearby. You. Both children jumped out of their skins and turned around. Helen stood there, radiating war, hands on hips, eyebrows down, plainly here to settle accounts. Stop right there. You're the... It's you. Helen pointed straight at Liliana's face. The monster. That eats. People. In the middle of a sunlit courtyard, children were squaring up. Helen and her friends had blocked the path. Get out of our way, Egga shouted. Move! Why are you playing with that savage? She's dangerous. She's not dangerous, Egga said flatly. Stop talking rubbish and get out of my sight. Helen came back at him. I heard she tried to eat Creed. Come with us. Before she eats you as well. Liliana felt herself shaking and something in her turned over. She lowered her head and the air around her went thin. Would you like to meet a very frightening friend of mine? Helen was not prepared for the change. Friend. Frightening. Liliana said nothing and closed her fist. Say hello to Oliver. Then she laughed, and the laugh was not good. If you'd rather not learn exactly how strong Oliver is, I suggest you stop now. She said the rest through her teeth. Why would I ever eat Egga? If I were going to eat anyone, I'd start with people who are rotten inside, like you. Egga sighed at the sky. Do you seriously believe she eats people? What a pack of babies. We don't. We never believed that nonsense for a second. The other children fell over themselves to agree. Exactly. We were only pretending. Helen's the strange one. Helen went scarlet, but my grandmother said so. She said Chobanchans eat people. Liliana shook her head slowly. You're taller than me. I assumed you were older. Turns out you're a baby with a runny nose. I suppose you still believe a man comes down the chimney with presents. Let me tell you something. He doesn't use the chimney. He flies a team of red-nosed reindeer in through the window. Egga took her hand without discussion. We're going. Neither of them knew the four of them would be laughing in the same fountain by nightfall. Stay near this lot and we'll catch it off them. Helen stamped after them. Come back. What did you just call us? She threw herself in front of Egga. Say it again, if you dare. Egga stopped and his mouth curved unpleasantly. Certainly. If not idiots, then what? Cowards? You were the one who ran away last time. Helen's face went crimson. She glared up at him. You wouldn't. Then Helen swung and shoved him hard. Egga wasn't braced. He staggered backwards and Liliana's face went black. She came off the mark like a loosed arrow. Nobody touches my friend. Egga watched with his eyes perfectly round. Afterwards, Liliana looked wrung out, head hanging, breathing in pieces. Regina came running. Lily. Good heavens. Are you all right? What has happened to your hair? Did somebody hurt you? Liliana looked at the ground and mumbled that she was fine. Eiga objected loudly. You're fine. I'm in ruins. My entire face is on fire. Liliana looked guiltily at the middle distance. Nobody asked you to get involved. That was a golden opportunity for me and Oliver. Eiga went off like a kettle. Oh, please, you can't fight. Without me, you'd have fainted again, guaranteed. She wasn't having it. Nonsense. Have you ever seen me fight? I'm outstanding at it. Eiga laughed nastily. Give over. There's nothing behind your punches at all. Regina watched the pair of them bicker and sighed. In an empire this obsessed with rank, children too young to grasp what a title meant simply ignored what Eiga was. She had no idea how to solve any of it. Just then, brisk footsteps came from the doorway. Lady Regina Barrico. Regina heard her own name, and turned, startled. Forgive me, you are. The woman inclined her head. Sophia Eldridge, Marchioness, and Helen's mother. Your sister and my daughter have just had an altercation. Lord Eiga was involved. Might I have a moment of your time? They went into a large drawing room. Sophia sat and explained it awkwardly. I was on my way to collect my daughter and came across the fight, so I stepped in and separated them. She bowed her head, and the regret was real. I didn't only scold Helen. I was sharp with Lord Eiga and with Liliana too. I hope you won't misread my intentions. Sophia looked at the two of them and hesitated. Are you both quite all right? The drawing room went into an awkward silence. Regina and Leo were sitting side by side on the same bench, and neither was comfortable. Regina looked at Sophia with concern. Is your daughter all right? I hope she isn't badly hurt. Sophia shook her head. She's fine. My worry is whether the young lord's face will scar. Leo answered, embarrassed. Children grow up through fights. Please don't trouble yourself. Sophia's smile relaxed. Thank you for your generosity. Lady Regina, I should have given my daughter more attention. But work took all of it, and I left her with her grandparents. She sighed and blamed herself out loud. Which is exactly how she came to be blinded by rumors, and ended up hurting your sister. I'll see to it that she apologizes properly. Regina nodded. Thank you. That would be best. After Sophia left, only Regina and Leo remained in the enormous room, and the silence went on for a long time. In the end, it was Leo who broke it. I'm sorry. Liliana went through that because the adults weren't paying attention. Regina waved both hands. Please don't apologize. None of it was your doing. Lord Leo? When I saw Eiga's face covered in bruises and scrapes, honestly, I was more worried about him. Leo smiled gently. He's all right. He's a brave boy. He looked at her, and something he had no name for turned over in him. She looked far more fragile than the last time. There was a faint sadness sitting between her brows. People are born small and mean. I once wanted her to suffer over me. And underneath that, whatever happened, I wanted her to be happy. For a moment, he genuinely wanted to go down on his knees and beg her to take him back. Leo closed his fist. No, absolutely not. He lowered his voice. Then I'll take Eiga home. Regina looked up at him with something complicated in her face. Love is only a passing feeling after all. She shouldn't trouble him over a momentary flutter. Regina said it quietly. Yes. Goodbye, my lord. At the same hour, in another wing of the palace, cold voices were carrying across a very large hall. As empress, refusing the state religion is unthinkable. You will choose. Convert, or go back to Chobansha. Alice closed her eyes and answered calmly, I'll convert. The hall filled with muttering. The nobles looked at one another. Nobody expected her to fold that fast. An old noble spread his hands. If you and His Majesty have a child, that child must be raised well away from Chobanshan culture. Yes, Alice said, you have my word. The man who had asked went cold with sweat. This was the opposite of what he had planned for. Alice sighed inwardly. Compared with these old foxes, hunting pirates and invading fleets had been restful. At least when pirates didn't listen, she could simply hit them. Here, one blow became a diplomatic incident between two nations. And in truth, Chobanshans use different names, but pray to the same god, so there was no reason to fight them over it and hand the fault-finders their opening. For the next 10 years, she only had to keep up the appearance of obedience. Besides, she and Marius had no plans to have a child. Theirs was a political marriage on paper. Another old noble leaned forward, eyes fixed on her. And how do you propose to prove any of that? Alice sat back. How would you like me to prove it? He produced a laugh like a nail on glass. Simple. He held her eyes. Swear a soul oath. Use it to seal your gift. Swear that you will only ever use it in the interests of the Empire. Castle turned over the papers in his hand with a dry rustle and looked at the man behind the desk. You genuinely intend to stand and watch this. Political marriage or not, she is your bride. Marius didn't move. Sealing her gift is the correct decision. Keeping someone with that much power inside the palace requires a proportionate restraint. At minimum. Castle made an appreciative noise. So being emperor requires this much cold blood and this little feeling. Though I've always thought that was simply you. You started a war to get what you wanted. A wife on paper hardly signifies. Marius laughed under his breath and pressed a hand flat on the papers. You locked Rebecca in a tower. You took a child, Liliana, as your hostage. Do you honestly believe you're qualified to judge me? Castle went quiet, and something sad crossed the back of his eyes. You still can't let that go. Then he shrugged. It's true. I did intend to kill Ega. In the end, I didn't. Marius looked at him. You're serious. You sent a 15-year-old to save Liliana and made him drink poison first. Castle laughed. That was only to stop him running. And it was not poison. Ega knew perfectly well it wasn't. That's why he went. Castle tapped the arm of his chair, steady as a clock. You're no different from me. Otherwise, why would a boy of 15 throw himself in the path of his own family? Then again, I must have looked like a joke to Ega back then. Because that wretched love potion turned me into something genuinely pathetic. Castle made a short sound. Then he laughed properly. It has been over 4 months. Do you truly still believe that boy betrayed you? He could not believe Marius had failed to see it even now. Castle smiled thinly. You think Ega picked a fight with you for no reason at all. He was 15 and lost in a first love, and he was also a clever noble raised inside a court. A child like that does not stake his life on romance. Everything he did was to keep you where you were. After meeting Regina, Leo finally understood that what he felt for Rebecca had been wrong from the first day. The potion collapsed in that instant, and Regina was a citizen of the kingdom he was invading. In despair and a guilt that could not be undone, he ended his own life. Ega watched all of it happen. He didn't want his only brother going the same insane way. He begged me on his knees to help him stop it. Castle looked straight at him. That is what that boy risked to save you, and the tragedy is that the Empire's famously iron-blooded emperor still cannot understand him. Perhaps growing up inside betrayal cost you the ability to see the truth. Until you think it through yourself, I won't say another word. I am extremely curious how long it takes you to work it out. Sunlight came down across the palace, and everything green in the gardens burned with it. The maids had surrounded her and would not stop. Lady Liliana, you are unbearably sweet. Liliana lifted the hem of the dress and turned a full circle, delighted with herself. For the wedding, Liliana and Ega had been chosen as the flower children. Other noble families' children had been on the list, but after the incident, they had all been struck off, leaving 2. The dress was beautiful. Thinking about wearing it on the day Alice married took the shine off it. Was Alice really about to be married? She looked down, and something lonely came into her face. And then, whispering came in from the corridor, rumors about the royal wedding. She looked at the closed door. What's that outside? I heard Lady Alice's gift is going to be sealed. Liliana went rigid where she stood. The maids' faces changed too. Do you think that's true? Outside, maids hurried past with piles of clean laundry. They say Parliament has been pushing for it. It looks like it's actually happening. Quiet. Lady Liliana is right in there. Do you want to end up like that gardener? They want to seal Alice's gift, but why? If it were something unstable, like Regina's, restricting it would at least make sense. Alice was different. She used her gift the way other people breathe. It was part of her. Sealing a person like that was telling a woman dying of thirst that she may not use her mouth to drink. It was cruel. The door opened. Why does Alice have to marry someone like Marius? Alice smiled at her gently. Lily, that dress is beautiful. You look exactly like a small princess. Marius was handsome and rich and held everything there was. And Alice was still the finest person in the world. Liliana's eyes blurred over. She threw herself into her sister's arms and burst into tears. Alice was thrown by it. Even if I screamed at her about this wedding, she wouldn't listen. What am I supposed to do? Then a knock. Alice looked up. A servant announced His Majesty. Liliana breathed in sharply. Show him in, Alice said pleasantly and cursed him privately. First, she thought, I have to look after Ega. The door opened. Marius came in and made a surprised noise. I didn't know Lily was here. And you, Ega, how have you been lately? Liliana's whole face went red with fury, and she glared at him hard enough to burn. Ega was alarmed by it. What's the matter with her, Your Majesty? Marius looked at the boy. Ega, I've told you there's no need for all that formality in private. Ega shook his head and turned away. No. Before you are my brother, you are the emperor of this empire. The smile set on Marius's face. He looked at the boy, at a loss. Alice watched all of it in silence. So what wind blows you here? Marius changed his face and laughed easily. Nothing at all. I only came to see how the preparations were going. And since my beloved little sister-in-law and Ega are both in their formal dress, the schedule seems reasonable. He went down on one knee. Ega, Lily, you can both handle your parts on the day, can't you? Her cheeks blew out like dumplings. Marius, you absolute monster. She marched forward and pointed at his face. Do not put pressure on Ega. Marius stopped. You want to seal Alice's gift and now you're going to make trouble for Ega as well? You don't need to instruct him. He already does everything perfectly. She was building momentum and started listing. He runs faster than me. And he eats every piece of his broccoli without complaining once. Ega went scarlet beside her, frozen where he stood. Liliana took a breath and aimed her finger at the Emperor's nose. And another thing. I am not your sister-in-law yet. Is that clear? From now on, you will not call me a mushroom. You will not tease me, and you will not seal Alice's gift because you're frightened of us. And most importantly, stop making things difficult for Ega otherwise. She extended one finger, magnificently. Your future sister-in-law, which is me, will never forgive you. Marius watched her, and something knowing came onto his mouth. Liliana, you really are very fond of Ega, aren't you? He crouched and put a hand on her head. Liliana threw both arms around Ega. Obviously. Ega is my friend and my subordinate, so I'll be on his side forever. Trapped in the hug, Ega went red to the neck and stood there staring at the floor. Lady Alice, I'll go and change. Alice watched him go. Liliana called after him, startled. Ega. She turned and glared at Marius. You've upset Ega and now he's run off. Lily, I've told you not to speak to adults like that, Alice said. Marius spoke again. Why don't you come and play with me when you're free? I'd like to be friends with you and Ega. She looked away and muttered that she had no interest in playing with him whatsoever. Marius dangled it casually. If you beat me at a game, I'll give you a present. Liliana twitched and asked what present. He looked mysterious. Telling you now would spoil it. But it will be enormous, entertaining, and thoroughly astonishing. You'll see. Her cheeks went pink. Enormous. Entertaining, astonishing. She desperately wanted to know. But playing with Marius was surely a betrayal of Ega. Alice could see her wobbling. Think it through, Lily. If His Majesty says enormous and astonishing, it must be something extraordinary. Aren't you the least bit curious? Liliana spun round, tripping over herself. You're right. No, I'm not curious at all. Even if I were slightly curious? Actually, I'd rather have a wish than a present. Marius smiled. Have both. I'll grant whatever you ask. She ran off shouting over her shoulder. Fine. Since you've begged me to play with you, I'll go and ask Ega. She changed into something comfortable and skipped down the corridor muttering, presents. If I tell Ega, he gets one too. She went the length of the corridor and finally saw a familiar shape ahead. He was with Leo. She was raising a hand to wave when she caught Leo's low voice. Ega, I've thought about it properly. The best arrangement is for you to live at the ducal estate. Liliana stopped, and the smile went off her face. Ega looked at the ground. I don't want to go there. I want to stay here. Leo looked down at him. You prefer the palace? Aren't you lonely here? Ega was quiet, then said yes. Leo sighed. Then come home with me. I'll have someone packed tomorrow. Leo, I'll be lonely wherever I am. I don't have parents. To all of you, I'm only a burden. Leo cut him off fast. Why would you think that? Ega's head came up and his voice went up with it. You're always busy, and Marius doesn't even like me. Ega twisted a fistful of his own shirt. If it weren't for the oath you swore to my mother, none of you would have taken me. Be honest, Leo. I know you find me a nuisance too. Leo went down on his heels and took him by both shoulders. No, Ega. I have never once thought of you as a nuisance. You're my brother. What brother calls his own family a burden? Ega looked at the floor, then very small. But Liliana is here, and Alice is here, and it's less lonely. Behind the corner, listening, Liliana came apart, and the tears came down without a sound. If you think being alone is better for me, I'll go to the estate. I'm sorry, Leo. She curled up behind an enormous stone pillar. He was hurt that badly. And she had been about to run over and tell him about Marius's game. She put her face against her knees, sick with herself. She'd been so pleased with herself running here. She was an idiot. But she couldn't break a promise to Marius either. She looked up at the sky and let out a very long breath. Which is exactly why you think carefully before you promise anyone anything. Marius stood in the middle of the yard and watched her arrive on time. You know the rules of territory, I take it. She folded her arms and said she did not. She had no idea she was about to win something her sister could not buy. He looked genuinely surprised. What? You've never played it? It's a wonderful game. How have you never tried it? She was indignant. I'm a child. There are thousands of things I haven't done. Then her competitive streak caught fire and she closed both fists. Stop talking and start the game. He agreed cheerfully. Certainly, and no going back on a promise. Ega isn't here, but I can handle him alone. A wish is on the table, so I have to win this. I'll destroy Marius completely and make him pay for everything he's done. He pointed at the ground under his boots and laid it out. Listen, kid, this is my territory. That over there is yours, and this is mine again. He drew the lines with a stick. Win a round of scissors, paper, stone, and you draw a circle outward to expand your land. Liliana was carrying a stick taller than she was and looked contemptuous. That doesn't sound entertaining at all. It's just drawing circles. He laughed. You can also draw circles to take my land. Take all of my territory, and I'll grant you a wish. She tilted her head. And if you take all of mine, I grant you one? He swung the stick hard. Exactly. You'll admit that your future brother-in-law is exceptionally handsome. And shout 3 times that he's the best-looking man alive. Liliana curled her lip. I hate that. She couldn't help complaining. What kind of a wish is that? Marius grinned wickedly and shouted that the game had begun. Liliana threw out a hand and lost. Sunlight lay long across the grass. White flowers were out and butterflies moved between them and away. 6 years into her life, Liliana finally understood a fundamental law of this world. No. Rock again. Over 24 rounds, her frankly alarming luck had let her dominate completely. And Marius had won 6, no more. And yet he was about to win the whole thing. Because his arms were longer. One easy sweep enclosed an enormous area. Liliana could win every round. And still only manage a small circle around her own feet. It was not fair. That was that. If only my arms were slightly longer. I want to win. I want to get Ega back at him. And these stubby arms have wasted every bit of effort I've made. What do I do? And then steady footsteps came across the yard, and Leo appeared at the edge of it. Marius, what exactly are you doing? Liliana's head came up. Salvation. She grabbed it with both hands and shouted with everything she had. Leo. Leo. He was carrying a stack of documents. He looked at Marius and asked through his teeth whether beating a child mattered that much to him. Marius smirked. Competition is a cruel business. Liliana registered her protest loudly. No, I'm a child. Why is anyone being cruel to me? My arms are this small. You're a miser. He genuinely is a miser, Leo agreed, and a terrible person besides. Liliana nodded sagely, then launched herself at Leo and attached herself to his leg. We're best friends, aren't we? Absolutely, Leo said without hesitating. Liliana produced a wicked smile. Her moment had come. She turned to a slack-jawed emperor. There. I appoint Leo as my representative, Marius shouted. What? From this point on, Leo draws my lines. Leo scooped her up with one arm, took the long stick in the other, and cut the air with it. That's acceptable. Liliana, I'm taking every inch of it back off Marius. Leo, Marius said in disbelief, does our friendship count for nothing at all? Mark walked past down the corridor with his files. Your reckoning has arrived, Your Majesty. Leo did not give an inch. Be quiet. If you weren't the Emperor, I would genuinely beat you. He closed his fist slowly and the knuckles cracked. Right then. Beginning now. Marius ended up flat on the ground with both hands in the sand, thoroughly destroyed. Liliana was cheering. I like Leo best. Best in the entire world. After an enormous number of rounds, the Emperor had been routed. He knelt in the dirt, looking deeply wronged. I'm the one who played with you. Why do you like him better? Leo looked at him sideways and clicked his tongue repeatedly. Are you a child? What is there in this to be jealous of? Liliana dropped out of Leo's arms and landed lightly. You admit I won. Fine, Marius said. You won. Then he covered his mouth and his shoulders started shaking. She looked at him and thought, why is he always this childish in front of me? What is funny? She turned around, put both hands on her hips, and made her voice grand. In that case, I shall now tell you my wish. The smile came off him. What is it? Is there something you want? A doll's house, perhaps. A puppy. Whatever it is, I can arrange it. Liliana's ears moved. A doll's house. A puppy. Simply imagining them made her feel wealthy beyond measure, and she had to cover her mouth. No. Keep this up and I'll blurt out some wish without thinking. Marius rubbed his chin. A secret treehouse also sounds rather good. Her eyes lit up. That sounds wonderful. It was out of her mouth before she could stop it. Really? He said. Shall we make that the wish? Liliana went rigid, then slapped her own cheeks. No. I am not wasting my wish on that. Leo dropped to one knee beside her. It looks as though she's already decided what to ask for. Marius sighed. Then what is it? She started and stopped. That is, you really will grant any wish I make. The teasing left him entirely. Of course, I am the Emperor. I can give you anything. Liliana looked down, working the hem of her dress between her fingers, scuffing both feet in the sand. She shut her eyes tight, like someone about to do something enormous. In that case, please don't put any limit on Alice's gift. Marius stopped, and his heart went hard against his ribs. For the gifted, that power is a third arm they were born with. Like a child learning to walk, they use it without effort, which means sealing it is the equivalent of cutting the ankles of a healthy person. The stronger the gift and the more it is used, the more violently it rejects the seal. And Alice's gift was recognized even in Chobancha as one of the most formidable alive. She had commanded blizzards cold as a winter gale, wrapping them round naval warships to drive them through heavy sea. In minutes, a warship could reach any Chobanchan water where pirates or invaders had been sighted. One movement of Alice's hand could crush an enemy hull without anyone drawing a blade. Every time she came ashore, Alice was received like a hero of the nation. She was walking, step by step, toward the person she had always wanted to become. Her mother. The cold blizzard was Alice's pride, and through it she had learned what pride and fire actually meant. Liliana kept her head down. Honestly, I don't want Alice to marry at all, but Regina says I have to respect her decision. I don't understand what respect even means. Please just let my sister keep using her gift. Please. Marius looked down at her, and something complicated moved in his eyes. That's all? Liliana said yes, shaking. He looked at her, and a gentle smile grew on his mouth. You appalling little creature. A child ought to behave like a child. Go and wish for a house made of sweets or something. Your wish is far too modest, don't you think? Leo nodded. Extremely modest. Very well, Marius said. I'll consider your wish. Though aren't you curious about the present I've prepared? He straightened up abruptly. Mark, have you surveyed the land my future sister-in-law has just conquered? Mark's head came up at once. Yes, Your Majesty, Marius waved a hand. Excellent. Build a playground on it. Swings, a seesaw, a slide, a fort, everything. Is that clear? Liliana breathed in and turned to stone. Mark took the order without blinking. At once, Your Majesty. I'll contact the architects. Liliana's face came apart. Hold on. What? Does that mean I actually won? Evening came down over the white stone of the palace. Mark lifted the teapot and poured slowly. That child is more impressive than most grown adults out there. Any ordinary child would have screamed for a castle made of sweets. Mark adjusted his glasses and hesitated. Do you genuinely intend to grant her wish? Marius picked up his cup unhurried. I promised, didn't I? Adults shouldn't lie to children. Mark lowered his voice. But the Senate. Marius turned the papers over, then let the Senate sign its own throat away. enough restriction to satisfy them, and enough room for Alice to use her gift freely. Wordplay is what we do. Mark sighed. I'll watch it closely. Marius set the cup down. And how is Iga? Mark's face relaxed slightly. The young lord is the same. He puts as much into his studies as he does into playing. Marius sat back. Good. I'm glad he's doing well. As long as I don't interfere. It stays that way. I'll keep my distance. Here we go again. A few months ago, he loved that boy like his own son. I don't understand how a man changes that fast. Your Majesty. Do you see it? The colder you are, the further you push him, and the end of it is that you both come out of this in pieces. The cathedral stood silent under a clean sky. Liliana had a death grip on her bouquet. She kept breathing deeply, trying to slow her own heart. Why do you keep doing that? Ega asked. Because I'm nervous. Aren't you nervous? He looked straight ahead. We walk behind the Emperor and Lady Alice, and when the moment comes, we slip out the side door. Liliana sounded close to tears. And if I trip? She watched him shake his head at her and thought, this boy does not behave like a 7-year-old, more like a very small 17. You do remember what day this is? Ega checked. She stopped for a second, then closed both fists and said it loudly. Obviously. Today I turn Regina and that man into my subordinates. He grinned. Correct. We've been planning this for a month, for exactly this moment. Regina hurried over. It's nearly time. Are you two ready? Ready, Liliana announced. Iga nodded. Failure is not an option. She breathed in and her face went serious and settled. The heavy doors opened outward, because today was Alice's day. The hymn came up under the vault of the cathedral. Liliana looked along the rows of guests, and her eyes fell. Andrew hadn't come after all. He had refused outright, so Marius and Alice walked in alone with the 2 children behind them. Does he hate me that much? Then her mouth set. Not now. Now I am strong. In a few months, when I'm taller, I'll write to him. And by then, he won't even recognize me. Her mood shot straight back up and she went incandescent with resolve. Ega watched it happen. A minute ago, she'd been a deflated balloon and now she was on fire. What an unstable person. Regina came forward. Liliana, can you do this? Liliana jumped and started stammering. Yes, I think so. I'm frightened. What do I do? Don't worry, said Ega. I'll take care of her. Regina let out a breath. Then I'm counting on you. Lord Ega. Liliana. Steady footsteps came down the cathedral. The Pope, with a face like carved stone, was approaching the altar. Alice came in white, and under the eyes of the entire hall, they walked slowly forward. Ega and Liliana followed. Marius turned his head and winked at Liliana, who screwed up her face and stuck her tongue out at the Emperor without a shred of restraint. Ega turned away and pretended he had never met her. As the ceremony moved on, Alice was minutes away from being Empress. Liliana looked at the white veil across her sister's back, and something unfamiliar came up in her. It felt strange. Until now, Alice had simply been her sister. From this moment, nothing would be the same. And if we grow apart from here, what then? Fortunately, she was not the only one feeling it. Regina put a hand on her shoulder. Before we perform the marriage rite, the Pope said, the bride will make her soul oath. Liliana went rigid. What? A soul oath? That is not what we agreed. The rite of sealing will be overseen by the current master of the Mage Tower, the Marquis Castle. He raised one white-gloved hand and light gathered at his fingertips. Now, I will seal the gift of Alice and administer the soul oath. Something caught fire inside Liliana, Marius von Smerhofen. She burned with it. I swear I will make you pay for this. He promised me. Yes, he's handsome and he's rich. But what is Marius, really? Why does my sister have to give up this much? The Pope's voice filled the cathedral. The parties to this oath are Lady Alice Barrico and the members of the Senate. And as witness, Marius tilted his head and his eyes went cold. I will witness it. Castle laughed softly and snapped his fingers. A sheet of paper drifted down and settled in front of them. Please confirm the wording one final time. Alice looked down at the page. The letters stood out clean and cold. Alice Barrico, upon assuming the throne as Empress, shall by no means bring harm to the Empire. Do you accept these terms? Her face didn't change. She reached out a gloved hand, took the pen and signed. Yes, I accept. And I accept, said Marius beside her. And then, something went wrong. A wave of magic swept the cathedral like a gale. An old noble's eyes went round and he shouted. A younger one clutched his chest, where light was burning through his coat. What is this? What does this mean? The noise buried the ceremony. Castle smiled beautifully. Because this oath was ratified by the Senate, it is legally held to have been signed by every member present at the time. The old senator started making sounds of real pain. However, Marius tilted his head and his eyes went over them like a razor, and his mouth made a cruel shape. Do not attempt to tell me you were forced into signing something when you had no idea what a soul oath was. The old man crumpled under it and couldn't produce a word. Liliana hid at the back, hugging her bouquet. After that, the air in the cathedral was very hard to breathe. So I thought to myself, if marriage is this frightening and this heavy, then I hope my other two sisters live with me forever and never marry anyone. In the banquet hall, the lights were up and the staff moved between round tables, laying out delicate food and champagne. Seeing her coming, Iga shouted, Liliana, where have you been all this time? He slapped the empty seat beside him. Sit down and eat something. Look at the plate I saved for you. He was talking with his mouth full. Where did you actually go? I thought you'd skipped it entirely. She swallowed. I went to check on Alice. I was worried about her heart. Thank goodness, she says it doesn't hurt at all. Ega sighed at her. You make an enormous fuss out of nothing. Then he dropped his voice and leaned in. Forget that. Eat and listen. I've tracked down where they are. Liliana stopped chewing. Who? Ega pointed across the hall. Away from the noise, at two figures sitting in a corner. Them, over there. In Alice's rooms, Amelia sorted through letters. I assumed that man wouldn't concede an inch on the soul oath. I'm glad he was at least on your side. Alice drank her tea. He wasn't. He's looking for a way to control me. He isn't trustworthy. Amelia folded the letters and sighed. Fine. As long as your interests line up, that's enough. If your power weren't sealed, they'd question your authority as Empress forever. Honestly, I didn't expect you to agree to that oath so easily. I thought you'd fight it. I intended to, but I can work with them because I believe you'll find the cure. You and the Tower Master worked together for under a month and found the cause. That alone is enough for me to trust you, Amelia. I know why you came to the Empire. I feel enormously guilty about it and enormously grateful. Amelia hesitated. Regina and I are grown women. We can look after ourselves, so you don't have to hold yourself together protecting us. We chose this road. You owe us nothing. She stood and put a hand on Alice's shoulder. Which is why, now that it has come to this, I will find a cure for Lily, even if I have to wring the last drop out of Castle's soul. Alice listened, and something gentle came onto her mouth. All right. The truth is, Amelia, I do trust you. But if anything happens to Lily, I will end all of it myself, and neither Marius nor Castle will stand in my way. In a corner of the hall, Amelia looked around. Where's Lily? She went out just now. Something she had to sort out with Lord Ega. Amelia drank. Those two seem to suit each other. Every time I see them, they're arguing. Regina smiled. They still are. 10 fights a day and 10 reconciliations. Amelia's brows went up. I'm glad she has a friend. She did not yet know what that friendship would cost the boy. By the way, that man over there has been staring at you this whole time. He seems very interested. She leaned in. 1 o'clock. Don't make it obvious. If he asks you to dance, say yes. What? Can't we go somewhere else? Just the two of us? She hadn't finished when the man was already walking over. He bowed slightly with a warm smile. I know it's appalling manners to approach without an introduction. Forgive my impertinence. You are extraordinarily beautiful. He straightened. Hannah Wick. Regina paused, then answered awkwardly. Regina Barrico. Han laid it on. Even your name is lovely. Might I have the honor of a dance? Amelia shoved her. Of course she will. Regina, weren't you just saying you wanted to dance? Regina staggered forward and privately wanted to strangle her sister, who hadn't even asked. Han put out his hand smoothly. Shall we begin, Lady Regina? They moved out onto the floor and into the music under the chandeliers. Han held her and congratulated himself. Effortless. 30 gold, and I barely had to work for it. Before the reception, Han had bet the others that he would win the affection of the Empress's Chobanchan sister. I'm not as handsome as Castle, but I'm presentable enough. And the rank matches. I'd hardly be a burden to them. His friends had laughed out loud. Calling yourself presentable confidence. He drank and went on. And I hear Chobanchans are very relaxed about romance. A few dates and a parting means nothing to them. Best of all, she's the Empress's sister. So if this goes well, what I get out of it is not small. One of them pointed across the room. What about the one beside her? Amelia, is it? Han shook his head. No, she's the Tower Master's assistant. She'll know magic. Approach that and I'd be asking for trouble. Fair. And this one? His eyes went back to Regina. Exactly. Her. She's beautiful. Chasing her should be entertaining. She really is stunning. If she weren't Choban-chan, I'd have pursued her properly. As heir to a barony, I could never promise marriage to a woman from a backward island. They're used to freedom. Love as they please, leave as they please. I only need the enjoyable part. And I can walk away whenever I like. If anything goes wrong later, I blame cultural differences. Han produced his perfect smile and asked whether the lady would care for another dance. Regina smiled back at him. What exactly was the bet about? He stopped. I beg your pardon? Regina's smile did not move. You put me up as the stake. Was it for money or for something else? The color left him. Regina laughed quietly. Today is a special day. I had intended to let this go. She reached out, ran a finger along his lapel, and then took a fistful of his collar and pulled him in. She put her mouth to his ear. I am not Alice, and I am not Amelia. When I am angry, I stop caring about appearances entirely. Try anything again and we both finish here. Are we clear? Han had no blood left in his face. She let go, planted her heel, and walked away without looking back. How did she know? How could she possibly know about the bet? How did she find out? Han had his face in his hands, making a strangled noise. You cannot imagine what she just said to me. Forget it. You wouldn't believe me anyway. The point is you lost. You owe each of us 30 gold. Han sagged, and then heavy footsteps stopped directly behind him. Did I mishear? Or was a state guest of Chabancha the stake in your wager? They turned into a man standing over them like a storm front. Your Grace, Han said, backing up. Your Grace, we were only. Leo did not listen. He reached out, took a handful of Han's collar, and the man might as well have weighed nothing. He lifted him clean off the floor to eye level. Starting with Baron Han, I'll be writing to each of your families about this insult. If you'd rather not bring it down on your houses, get out. Han and his friends made a noise and scattered, terrified out of their skins. They did not stay a second longer. Leo brushed off his hands, made a contemptuous sound, and turned, and looked up. On the second-floor balcony, Regina stood against the rail. Leo came up the steps. Why are you out here alone? She turned, startled. Lord Leo. The last of the sun was going down red across the balcony. He looked around. Where's Lady Amelia? Dancing with her colleagues from the tower, Regina said, looking away. I wanted some air. Leo was quiet, then said carefully that she should stay well clear of Han. He's crude and he has no manners. Regina looked at him, startled, and her cheeks went pink. Had he seen all of it? I know what sort of man he is, so I warned him myself just now. Leo's head came up. You warned him? His shoulders dropped slightly. He and his friends were laughing at me. You know how it is. Imperial citizens tend to look down on Choban-chans. Amelia is oblivious to all of that. There's nothing in her head but research, so she pushed me straight at him. It's exhausting. If anyone else had seen it, fine. I simply didn't want you watching that man harass me. That isn't something you should have to carry, Leo said too quickly. How am I supposed to not worry when it concerns you? I only wanted to help. I don't need your help, so please stay out of my affairs. Leo stopped. He let out a breath so quiet it barely existed. Even if you don't need me, Lady Regina, I need you. I'm in love with you. That's why I can't stand and watch. Regina went absolutely still, with nothing at all in her head. I've thought for a long time about what it means to love someone. If it were about a face, then by rights I should be devoted to your sister, because the two of you look remarkably alike, but the only person in my head has ever been you. Perhaps it's your brightness. Perhaps it's that I treasure every moment the two of us have laughed together. Piece by piece it went deeper. What I am certain of is that I loved you from the first moment I saw you. You are stamped into me. It can't be scrubbed out and it can't be forgotten. It's strong enough that weighing up the practical future has stopped meaning anything. I know I'm a fool, I love you. Regina's hands closed on her skirt. With him speaking that honestly, with his whole heart out on the table, she could not go on lying. She dropped her head and her voice shook. If you knew what I really am, you would find me disgusting. Leo stared. What do you mean? Regina shut her eyes hard, then opened them, and the clear blue went red as blood. This is my gift. She held his eyes. Kneel. Something he could not resist went straight through Leo, and his knees gave, and put him heavily on the floor in front of her. She looked down at him. Do you understand now? She said. My gift is control of the mind. If I truly used this, I could have you in my hand this second. She had wanted to run. Back then, loving someone that much, she had hidden the gift and invented reasons to end it. This time, Regina chose not to run. She would face it because she could not hide anything from him anymore. She thought about the men she had dated before. She had felt nothing for any of them, and she had still shown them this at the end. Once it is shown, nothing ever goes back. I know this will be an enormous weight on him. It is also the only way I can confess how I feel. Her eyes went up slightly and her heart hammered. It's all right. Even if he ends up hating me for it. The pain is temporary. Given enough time, I'll get past it. Leo let out a light breath. I know. He said it perfectly calmly. I've known about your gift for a long time. Her eyes went wide, but how? She couldn't move. Leo explained it evenly. Did you truly think we would travel all that way to Chobancha without investigating everything? Lady Alice was identified as the Empress candidate before we ever set out. The file on you was finished before we left port. Regina shook her head. Wait, you're telling me you knew all of it and you still wanted me? Leo took her hand. Lady Regina, was this small thing the reason you ended it with me? So it never occurred to you that I might have been manufacturing your feelings this whole time. Leo laughed under his breath. I know your control can't create real feelings. A moment ago you said you could make me dance. Your gift isn't anywhere near that strong, is it? The tears finally came down her face. He had known all along. Emilia, you were wrong this time. This man understands me. Or rather, he understands the shame I've spent my life hiding. Leo pulled her in hard, and under the last of the light the two of them held on. Moonlight lay across the silent garden. Liliana crouched behind a bush and whispered, Iga, are you ready? We've waited a solid month for this. Once they're our subordinates, Creed is mine. Not a chance, Liliana objected. He's going to be my errand boy. Iga's brow went up. I'm not taking Helen. Both of them are mine. Creed runs my errands and Helen serves me. Understood. Down the path, Helen was walking with Creed. She heard something and stopped and looked back, uneasy. What is it? Creed asked. Helen scanned the garden. Empty and silent. Nothing. I must have imagined it. Behind the bush, Liliana was urgent. Get it out. Ega dug through his pockets. I'm looking. He finally produced one perfectly round grape and put it in her hand. Liliana's face went dark and resolute. She took hold of the slingshot. The plan was as follows. First, wait for Helen and Creed to be in the garden. Then use the slingshot to put food all over their clothes. On a day this important, clothing covered in food guarantees a serious telling off from an adult. And if discovered, they would run straight for the fountain. Liliana looked at her accomplice. Ready. Iga nodded once. The two of them held their breath and watched two entirely unsuspecting figures. Last time I got shouted at because of you two. Liliana released her fingers. The grape went out through the air. Today you pay for it. It crossed the dark and caught Creed precisely on the back of the neck. He yelped and pitched forward. Helen grabbed him. What's wrong? He turned round, holding his head close to tears. Something hit me. Helen looked around, bewildered. What are you talking about? There's nobody here but us. She hadn't finished when a second projectile came howling in. Helen's eyes went round. She had no time to react before she took one full in the forehead. What followed was a downpour. Helen covered her head and shrieked, What is this? Where is it coming from? Behind the bush, Liliana had a hand over her mouth. Iga couldn't close his at all. He raised the slingshot again and took aim. Have that. Water went everywhere. Creed grabbed his head and screamed about ghosts. Helen recovered fast. There are no ghosts. Somebody is doing this. Whoever you are, you'd better show yourselves right now. And behind the bush, Liliana finally lost it, and the laugh rang right across the empty garden. Helen's head snapped round toward the sound, and her eyes were burning. Liliana read the situation, grabbed Ega's hand, and shouted at him to run. The two of them ran for their lives under the moon, laughing the whole way. "You are not getting away." Creed catch them. Creed, appalled by all of it, could only flail along behind. Right. Faster. If we reach the banquet hall, we're safe. Helen and Creed won't dare cause a scene in front of the adults. Get inside and we've won. Liliana was gasping, her face soaked. Ega stopped first. "Are you all right?" She stopped too, breathing hard. "Yes, I think." She didn't finish, because something came at them out of the dark. Liliana looked up, eyes enormous. "Got you." Helen came in like a landslide. The impact was too much to absorb. Liliana went over backwards, and the splash was deafening. All three children went into freezing water. Ega surfaced coughing. Helen went in after them, and the immaculate hair came out flat. Helen thrashed and shrieked, "What in the world is happening?" Creed watched all of it from the bank, out of his mind with fright. "Helen, are you all right? I'll get an adult." He hadn't turned round when Liliana came straight up out of the water, howling with laughter. "It's water fight time." She swung both arms and sent a wall of water at the boy on the bank. She was ecstatic in that pond, hurling water and laughing. This is the best thing ever. Helen wiped her face and returned fire. "Don't you bully Creed. Ega wasn't having that either." He threw water and shouted, "Liliana is my subordinate. Don't touch her." Then a soaking hand came up out of the water and closed on Creed's wrist. He had no time. One hard pull and he was in the pond. He finally got his head above water, gasping, in a truly pitiful condition. Liliana pulled her eyelid down and stuck out her tongue at him. Helen asked if he was all right and hadn't finished, when a column of water landed squarely on Liliana's head. Ega wiped his face and roared, "You horrible thing!" He swung and put a lake over her. "Helen, we have to win this." Helen was startled into it, and then she was in the war too. After the naval engagement, the fountain gradually went calm. 4 children lay in the water, wrecked, breathing hard. Liliana squinted at Helen. Water was running off her hair in strings, and Liliana snorted. The laugh was contagious, Ega started. Then Creed. And finally, even Helen went under, and all 4 of them lay there laughing at the sky. The sound tore straight through the quiet of the night and rang round the garden. And then, hurried footsteps from the far end. Lord Ega, Lady Liliana. Helen went silent. Ega saw the shapes coming. Run. Creed and Helen looked at each other. Right. Wet footprints went off across the flagstones, the whole record of their escape. From the direction of the hall came food and the clatter of plates. Somehow, all of it felt thrilling. They hid in the bushes outside the banquet hall. Helen put a finger urgently to her lips. Liliana was trying not to laugh and producing small hissing noises. Helen hissed back at her to be quiet. And then Liliana simply couldn't hold it anymore and let out the biggest, brightest laugh of her entire life. A month of planned revenge ending in total failure. The next morning, birdsong over white stone. The peace was destroyed by a scream. Liliana came down the corridor at volume. Ega was on his bed playing with the teddy bear and nearly went through the ceiling. What's happened? Liliana came into the room like a projectile and landed on the bed on top of him. Ega. I'm so happy. It's Antonio. He's written to me. Ega, flattened, was seeing stars. Antonio. Who is that? Liliana was too pleased to notice. My friend, Antonio. Liliana was not friendless. Back at the National Nursery, in the lemon class, the olive class, the grape class, or the pomegranate class, she had been close to every single child. They used to crowd around her, laughing, calling her their best friend, promising to play every day. And since arriving here, she had not had one line from any of them, which had begun to gnaw at her. Until today, when a letter finally arrived. Liliana clutched the envelope, flushed with it, but beside her, Ega's face went dark. Your friend? He folded his arms and stared at her. Are you very close, you and this Antonio? She nodded as though it were obvious. We are. Antonio and I are super ultimate best friends. She hummed. We've known each other 6 years. I need to open this immediately. Ega looked at her with about 9 expressions fighting for control of his face, then at the envelope in her hand, and said so quietly it barely existed, closer than me. Liliana was pulling the letter out. Sorry, what? She unfolded it happily. Next time I see Antonio, I'll introduce you to him. Ega. He threw himself flat on the bed. No, thank you. Liliana looked at the sulking heap and shook her head, then went back to the letter. Liliana, it's me, Antonio. How have you been? Without you, my days are honestly very dull. Do you remember eating tart under the olive tree? When will I get to see you again? I miss you enormously. Francesca misses you too. Right back. Love, Antonio. By the end of it, her eyes had gone hot. Ega lay crushing the teddy bear to his chest, repeating 2 words to himself. Love, Liliana. At the desk, Liliana's pen moved briskly. Done. I'll send some sweets you can only get in the Empire. Antonio will love those. Ega stood behind her with a face like weather. Liliana. Writing back, are you? I'm busy. He was silent a long time before he found the courage and his voice shook. What about me? I'm your super ultimate best friend too, aren't I? She kept fiddling with the paper and answered without looking up. No, you're a normal friend. She put the pen down. It's like this. I originally intended to make you my subordinate, and you wouldn't do a single thing you were told. So in the end, I grudgingly let you be a friend instead. Antonio and I grew up together. We're like actual siblings. There are no secrets between us, whereas you and I fight and make up about 30 times a day. She looked at him, as though this were self-evident. Ega, you genuinely don't know why? Ega's eyes went red and his whole body started shaking. He ran out of the room. A week went by. Ega had become someone else. More precisely, he had become alarmingly attentive. At the table, Liliana only had to mention milk, and he was up and pouring it. Not only that, he put an entire plate of meat in front of her and urged her to eat, with a smile nobody could refuse. He crouched and wiped her face carefully and gave her his own favorite grape sweet. And that was not the end of it. Liliana looked at the boy crouching in front of her. Come on, get up. You said you didn't want to climb the stairs. Get on, I'll carry you. Liliana was so alarmed she went up the stairs on her hands and knees. Ega, are you ill? He walked on without turning round. I'm not ill. Worry about yourself. If you don't want to be sick again, eat properly. You should know Lady Regina is genuinely frightened for you. Liliana stared at his back and muttered that he'd been extremely suspicious lately. He stopped dead and spun round. She shut her eyes and braced for a flick on the forehead. It didn't come. He was gently smoothing her hair. Your hair's caught in the ribbon. Let me. Your hair tangles a lot, doesn't it? She said awkwardly that it did, so she had to brush it or tie it up constantly. Ega repeated it thoughtfully. Brushing. I see. Liliana. So I'm your super ultimate best friend now, aren't I? She answered without a second's hesitation. We are not best friends. And when exactly are you giving Marshmallow back to me? He was quiet a moment. Then his head came up with something settled in it. He announced it while walking off. From now on, I'm raising Marshmallow myself. Liliana went up like a rocket. What? Marshmallow is my actual brother. Ega walked on without looking back. Mine too now. Liliana stamped down the corridor. On what authority? Give him back. I already gave you Biscuit. Creed made a small sound and shrank into himself. Liliana threw the wardrobe door open. Found you, Creed. He whimpered. There had been a few bumps along the way. But today, Helen and Creed had genuinely come to the palace to play, and were currently deep in a vicious game of hide-and-seek. Liliana turned to him. Do you know where Helen and Ega are hiding? She sighed. My legs hurt. Creed went red and mumbled that his did too. Then she had an idea. Shall we look for them while eating? He carried a butter biscuit and worked through it in small, crunching bites. About that. Liliana. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said you eat people. He kept his head down and his cheeks were pink. You seem like a very good friend. Liliana waved it away grandly. It's fine. You know I'm not a monster now. He was still awkward about it. I really am sorry. Liliana studied him. From that one conversation, she had worked out that Creed was fundamentally decent and extremely timid, which made him the perfect candidate for the position of subordinate. Then a rustle reached her. Got you. She put her head round an enormous planter and shouted. Ega, hiding behind it, nearly left his body. How did you know I was here? She put her hands on her hips. I heard you breathing. Ega got up, embarrassed. Have you found Helen? Ega reached out and pressed both palms to her cheeks. You don't look well. Are you ill? She looked away, awkward. I'm only a bit tired. It's nothing. Forget Helen. Go and lie down. Liliana said nothing. In truth, since waking that morning, her body had felt like wet sand. But if she went to bed now, when would she next see Helen? Helen was the first girl she had made friends with in the Empire. She lifted her head and dug her heels in. No, I want to play with Helen a bit longer. Iga's temper went. You cannot afford to get ill again. Come back to your room now. And hers went with it. You don't get to order me around. You're not my sister. Iga stopped. Then his face went scarlet. I'm worried about you, because I'm your friend. Liliana went red too and shouted back. Helen is my friend now as well, so I'm playing longer. Iga stood absolutely still and his green eyes were stricken. I only ever let myself play with you for a little while, because I was worried about your health. A single clear drop landed on the carpet. Iga stood there with his eyes rimmed red. His fists closed and his voice came out through the crying. You like them better than me, don't you? She reached out to catch his arm. Wait. Iga, why would you say that? He knocked her hand away and turned on her, shouting, I know you like them better. Stop pretending. Liliana went red with panic. That's not true. Iga, you idiot. How can you say that to me? His eyes were full and he screamed it. Stop lying. If you really liked me more, you'd have gone back to your room like you were told. I care about you far more than they do. So why don't you like me more? He said the rest through his teeth and the tears came down his burning face. Liliana couldn't move. Was it me? Did I abandon him? The corridor filled with broken little sobs. Liliana cried until she was hiccuping. I thought we were close. Helen sat across from her. I understand why you're this upset. You two are joined at the hip. And Iga was well out of order just now. Helen's brow went up, indignant. Would you like me to go and teach him a lesson? Creed flapped around her helplessly. Don't cry, Liliana. Then a bright knock. The door opened. A servant bowed. Lady Helen, Lord Creed, it's time to go home. Helen complained under her breath. But we want to stay with Liliana a bit longer. Liliana sniffed. It's fine. Go on before you get in trouble. Look, I've stopped. Liliana nodded hard. Creed shifted about. About that. Liliana, try talking to Iga again. I honestly want you two to make up. Helen and I had an enormous fight once. We made up afterwards. She listened to him and said thank you quietly, then took a very deep breath and pulled herself together. Helen? Creed? Let's all play again next time. We'll eat more good things and play more games. Agreed. I promise I'll come back with Creed. That's a deal. The last of the sun turned the sky orange. Helen and Creed leaned out of the carriage window waving. Liliana waved back hard, and when the carriage was fully out of sight, her hand came slowly down. The color went out of her face like paper and sweat came up on her forehead. Her breathing came faster and harder. She put one hand on the wall and moved along it towards her room. My medicine. She was gasping. She lurched at the table and her hand shook, reaching for the bottle. I have to take it. She got hold of it and went down onto the edge of the bed, tipped her head back and swallowed in gulps. This is horrible. I'm sorry. She turned her head with difficulty. Her vision was already going. She looked at the panicking maid and whispered, I think I'm ill. Please fetch my sisters. And then her body simply stopped and she went down onto the bed. Are my sisters here? A hand with a glass of water arrived at her mouth. Marius sat on the edge of the bed and lifted her gently. And before this night was over, he would understand what he had done to Iga. Your sisters have all gone to bed. She drank, dazed, and looked at the black window. It's so dark outside. Past 4 a.m, Marius said. You missed dinner. Even ill, you should eat something. He was patient about it. Medicine on an empty stomach will hurt your stomach. The doctor has already seen you. Your sisters were extremely frightened for you. Something rare and gentle came into his eyes. He reached out and pushed the sweat-stuck hair off her forehead. Bring some soup. The maid bowed. At once, Your Majesty. A while later, Liliana was sitting up in bed with her mouth full. The maid brought soup, and Marius simply started feeding it to her. He picked up the spoon with enthusiasm. Open. She obediently opened and swallowed. Marius was lavish about it. You're extraordinary. I'm telling Lady Alice about this. She didn't notice finishing the entire bowl, or draining the bitter powder afterwards. He carried on cheering. You drank that vile stuff like water, so brave. You'll grow up to be a hero. And since you were that brave, Your reward is a bar of chocolate. Liliana had the distinct sense of having walked into a trap made of compliments. It had all happened very fast. Marius noticed the look. Why are you glaring at your brother-in-law? Have I done something wrong? Her cheeks went out. You are not my brother-in-law. You're a strange man I happen to know. He spread his hands. I married your sister. Legally, I am precisely your brother-in-law. She stalled, then muttered that he had a point. Then her chest came out again, and her voice came up. Regardless, you have done some genuinely unacceptable things to me. And only now did she remember the extremely important things she had forgotten. The soul oath. If he insisted on calling himself her brother-in-law, he could at least keep his word. He had no idea what an angry sister-in-law was capable of. Marius looked at her serious little face and scratched his head. What exactly have I done to you? She pointed at a chair across the room and gave the order at volume. Go and sit on that chair with the star on it. Sit there for 10 minutes and think about what you've done. Marius blinked. I have to sit there? What if I gave you another chocolate? But you must never tell your sisters you've had chocolate. They forbade it. Because it rots your teeth. He's trying to buy me off again. Marius looked at the sheer moral agony on her face and put his head back and laughed until he had to wipe his eyes. Ah, you're sulking because I haven't granted your wish. Liliana, you really are still a child. She went red and snapped that nobody was sulking. Thank you. And she was not a child. She was grown up. He pointed at both dumpling cheeks. Look at yourself. If you weren't sulking, why are you this angry? She had no answer and kicked the covers instead. I hate you. I know you're angry, but keep your legs covered. He tucked the blanket back around her. About that. I am genuinely sorry. There was no way to avoid the oath, so I had to go around it. Though that's probably too complicated for you being small. She sniffed. Yes, I'm small and I don't understand you. But I still hate you. You hurt Iga. He is annoying sometimes. But you shouldn't have treated him like that. I am never forgiving you. Marius looked at her seriously. I have never once thought of him as a nuisance. Her head came up and she shouted, Liar! He looked straight back at her, calm and certain. I'm not lying. I know that not every set of siblings in this world loves each other the way yours does. My brother didn't love me either. That's why he moved to the countryside. Marius's hands closed on his own trousers. That isn't true. Andrew loved you enormously. If he really loved me, it's a very strange sort of love. Love shouldn't be like that. Marius laughed as though he'd heard something absurd. Kid. Do you even know what love is? Go on then, tell me. Liliana thought about it very seriously. Love. Love is never making the person you treasure feel unsafe. Unsafe? She dropped her eyes. Yes. The way I behave in front of my brother and in front of my sisters is completely different. With him, I ate the horrible spinach, and I never cried for toys. Because I love him more than he loves me. Andrew. Liliana took a fistful of blanket and cut him off. I'm frightened he'll forget me. Marius watched her in silence. She kept her head down. Which is why I keep writing to him. Hoping he'll keep remembering me. You don't think that's love? He didn't answer immediately. She answered herself. It is. It's one-sided love. My brother's face gets a little fainter in my head every day. It must be the same for him. And if one day neither of us remembers the other, maybe I'll stop loving him, and then we won't be family either. She sat in the enormous bed, with her shoulders down. I think Ega feels exactly the same. He probably wants to tease all of you and be spoiled. And he can't. I understand it, because I'm in the same position. Marius's head came up. He can if he wants to. If the two of you roll around on the floor screaming for toys, that's fine. Ignore every word we say and eat nothing but sweets. That's fine too. He faltered, and his voice shook slightly. We love you both enormously. We simply never learned how to show it properly. Uncle, you really are stupid. Marius stopped. What? People only dare to run wild, when they're completely certain they'll be loved whatever they do. He stared at her, and for a long time produced nothing. You're a grown man. How can you not understand something that simple? Marius could not move, and Castle's voice came back to him. It has been over 4 months, and you still truly believe that boy betrayed you. He put his face in his hands and went down into it. Was that why he pointed a sword at me that day? Did he trust me so completely that he believed staking his own life would make me stop? Marius bent forward and put his face into both palms. Liliana was thoroughly alarmed. Was telling an adult he doesn't understand love really this devastating? She reached out timidly and patted his head. It's all right, really. Then Marius pitched forward and gathered the small child up off the bed. He put his face into her shoulder and his voice came out wrecked. Where exactly did you come from, you small angel? What would I do without you? She felt the hand tighten on the top of her head. The way he held on was meant to reassure her that everything was fine. But his eyes, his face, and the shake in his voice all said the opposite. She let him stroke her hair until he was steady. It was a very strange morning. 3 days flat on her back, and her body finally began to come round. Marius had vanished after that first night of nursing her. Emilia? She asked from against the headboard. Has Iga been to see me? Emilia stopped. Why do you ask? Do you want to play with him? Liliana looked down, and something sad went across her face. Nothing. Forget it. Even Marius and Leo came to visit. Is that really how our friendship ends? Just like that. If Antonio told me he preferred playing with someone else, I'd cry for a week. She stared at the bright window. Lost in it, Aga, are you still angry with me? At the far end of a silent corridor, light came through the tall windows onto the heavy carpet. Aga lay alone on a wide bed, wrapped in the blanket. A soft knock. His eyes opened and he shouted, I told you I want to be left alone. Silence outside, then the knock came again. He went red with rage. Do you think I'm joking? I told you to stay away from me. Aga. He kicked the blanket off and found Liliana standing at the edge of the bed, sniffing with her eyes red. Aga froze, and every bit of the anger left him. He scrambled off the bed and got to her, pulling the slipping blanket back up around her while scolding her at volume. Why? I told you not to come in. Liliana sniffed. I'm sorry, but I missed you. Aga set his jaw. If you're ill, you stay in your room. What are you doing this far from it? What if you get worse? She looked at the floor and her voice went flat. I didn't know. You never came to see me. And I think it made me sicker. Aga looked at her, and something in his face changed for good. He would spend the next 9 years proving it. She asked it timidly. Aren't we friends anymore? He looked away and mumbled that he didn't know. She pushed. Do you not want to be my friend? No, it isn't that. I'm just very angry. She pulled the heavy blanket around herself and shrank into it. I'm sorry. Aga was quiet, red with embarrassment and temper at once. Then he couldn't hold it any longer. Why is Antonio your super ultimate best friend and I'm only a normal friend? We watched butterflies in the garden together. We explored the whole palace together. Liliana looked up at him with no idea what to say. He got more upset the longer he spoke. You said Leo was your best friend as well. So what exactly am I to you? Liliana blinked as though this were obvious. But you and I don't have any secrets. What? She explained it earnestly. A good friend is someone you share secrets with. A super ultimate best friend is someone who forgives you. With Leo, I used to split chocolate behind my sisters' backs. Antonio and I grew up together, so we have hundreds of secrets. Once we broke a vase and told everyone the wind did it. And many, many times we drew on the neighbor's dog and pretended nothing had happened. So there. We really did all that. A super ultimate best friend is someone who forgives you even when you give away everything they've done and stays with you regardless. She sniffed. You and I have never made a single secret together because you can do everything perfectly well without me. And the tension came off Ega's face and his mouth went up at the corners without his permission. Then you can be my special friend. Do you want to make secrets with me? Iga nodded so hard it hurt. We'll share secrets and other things too. But it has to be things Helen and Creed can't do. Even so, that still doesn't earn best friend, or super ultimate best friend. Then Liliana had an idea. She remembered Regina at the dinner table, radiant, telling Alice that she thought Leo and she were soulmates. And Alice's face had gone soft and pleased. Liliana did not fully understand what the word meant, but if it made people look that happy, a soulmate had to be an extremely, extremely close friend. She lit up. All right, you can be my soulmate. She nodded once, absolutely certain. It's a very good relationship, like best friends forever. Something in Iga's chest missed. He stared at her. So this is a thing I do only with you. Not Antonio, not Helen. Liliana hesitated. Only you? He took a step forward, and his voice left no room. Only me. It can only be me. Understood. She was frightened enough by it to nod repeatedly. Yes. Yes. He pressed. Do you swear? She put a hand up and shouted, I swear. I'll be soulmates with you and nobody else. I promise. She held out one small hand and hooked her little finger round his. Break this and I will never forgive you. Don't worry, we're soulmates now. I would never break a promise. Then something occurred to Ega. Oh, you can have the bear back. I don't need him as a hostage anymore. Liliana went blank, then red with fury. He was my brother in the first place. Ega grinned wickedly. You bullied me, so I took him. He leaned in and dropped his voice. Break a promise again and I'll put him in a pot and boil him into bear soup. And now you're threatening my brother. Liliana threw off the blanket and came at him with both fists. Take that back immediately. Ega ran round the room laughing. And so, one day after making up with Ega, Liliana's body recovered miraculously. She could finally get out of bed. I still don't understand what a soulmate is. Liliana ran through the crowd. Hurry up, let's go faster. Marius let himself be dragged along, with something amused on his mouth. You want the circus that badly? Obviously. I want the clown on the one-wheeled bicycle, and I want to eat a great deal. Marius turned to Ega. And you? Anything you'd like to see? The Imperial mages are supposedly putting on fireworks tonight. Ega's voice softened slightly. That sounds interesting. Liliana closed her eyes, and something smug came onto her mouth. Time to make my move. She grabbed a fistful of his coat. I want to see them. I want the fireworks. Ega, you'll watch with me, won't you? Please. Ega looked at the sheer overacting inside. You're impossible. It's nothing, and you make a scene. Ega, you've promised. You are not going back on it. And you have to take us. Understood? Marius laughed out loud. Fine. Not a problem. We'll go. The three of them walked into the fairground. Someone was breathing fire. Someone else was tumbling. Why were they at a circus at all? For that we go back a few days. Soulmates. Alice lifted her teacup and explained it gently. It means the companion of your soul. Someone more precious than a best friend. Someone you love so much that your heart turns over. Liliana turned to stone. I had no idea. I thought it just meant people who stay friends even after they die. That is not Ega. She grabbed her own head in horror. Marius drifted closer. Our little sister-in-law looks about to burst into tears. And who exactly have you sworn a soul oath to? Can't you tell your brother-in-law? Liliana hid her face in both hands. No, it's far too humiliating. He pressed the advantage. Don't be like that. Shall we hook fingers and swear one, you and I? And you aren't my brother-in-law, you're just some man. Alice set her cup down, and her voice was calm and impossible to argue with. Liliana, you will call him brother-in-law. Under that gaze, Liliana flinched and shrank into her collar and corrected herself. Brother. In-law. Alice looked at her kindly. Lily, there's something I'd like you to do for me. Could you? Me? What is it? Your brother-in-law wants to take you and Ega out, and Ega won't go anywhere with him. Could you talk to him? Marius put in from the side. We're going to the circus. Liliana came off the chair. What? The circus. She grabbed her own cheeks, eyes shining. It was the circus she had dreamed about back in Chobansha. The one she'd missed by nearly being run over. Then Ega's face came into her mind, and she went still, and looked down, wrestling with it. But if Ega says no, I'm not going either. Marius smiled at her. Our little sister-in-law is a very loyal friend. You'll grow up into a genuine hero. Honestly, I want to use the circus as an excuse to put things right with Ega. I want to apologize to him properly and promise I'll never do anything like that again. The way you and Alice are, the way sisters are. That's why I'm hoping you'll talk to him. If he refuses, so be it. But I want to try. She looked up at him. She had expected him to be angry at being refused. He looked completely sincere instead. Her cheeks went red. But don't get your hopes up. I am always on Ega's side, clear? Marius smiled gently. Thank you, Liliana. Thank you for being that good a friend to him. So Liliana took the job and went to ask Ega whether he wanted to see a circus. Against every expectation, the boy who was supposed to refuse flatly nodded at once and said he was rather curious about circuses. A huge blue and white balloon rose into the sky and the whole square was noise and laughter. Clowns were putting fire into the air. Liliana looked at all of it, flushed with it. If they watched fireworks somewhere this good, those two sulking idiots would surely make up. Ega eyed her suspiciously. What are you thinking about? She wiped the smile off fast. Nothing. She pointed at the crowd ahead. Never mind that. Look, everyone's gathering over there. Ega was struggling to see too. I can't either. And then an enormous hand came past both of them. Liliana yelped as she went straight up into the air. Marius sat her on his shoulders and held on. Better? Liliana whooped. I can see, they're juggling. Ega looked up, curious in spite of himself. Juggling. From up there, Liliana laughed in triumph. Actually, put me down. He set her carefully back on the ground. Then it's your turn, Ega. Up you come. If you want me to teach you juggling one day, watch properly. It was the last easy hour any of them would have. Liliana shoved him forward. Ega floundered. Wait. He didn't get an argument out before he was in the air, and he shut both eyes. Ega opened them slowly, and a world that had been a wall of backs opened out in front of him. His mouth came open. Better? Marius asked. On the stage a short way off, the performers were throwing colored balls between them at speed. Ega looked down at all of it, awkward, and said yes. Feeling the boy on his shoulders relax, something soft came onto Marius's mouth. You weigh nothing at all, so watch for as long as you like. The fairground was packed. In the distance, the circus tent was already up. Ega, this is good, isn't it? Once we've eaten, we go straight in. We need to be fast if we want the front row. Liliana stopped chewing and said with some hesitation that she needed the lavatory. Marius stopped dead and made a strangled noise. When he didn't respond, she raised the volume. Did you not hear me? I need the lavatory. Marius had never once looked after a small girl. Outside the door, Marius could not hide his anxiety. You're certain you can manage alone. If it's difficult, I'll ask a lady to help you. Liliana waved him off out of patience. I'm not a baby. Wait here. He sighed. If anything happens, you call for me. Understood. At the basin, Liliana shook the water off her hands. I am a large 6-year-old. My sisters treat me like a doll that needs handling. When I can clearly use a lavatory and wash my own hands. She spread her arms, put on the brightest smile she owned, and shouted that she was coming out. She pushed the door open, and the person who should have been waiting was not there. She came out of the building and searched the crowd. There. Why are they waiting that far away? Was standing outside a ladies' lavatory too embarrassing for him? Liliana ran over on short legs, waving and calling. Ega, wait for me. The area was too crowded and the noise swallowed her completely. They're walking too fast. They can't hear me. She set her teeth and ran harder. She caught the back of the boy walking ahead of her. Got you. He stopped and turned round, and his face was confused and completely unfamiliar. Liliana went cold where she stood. Who are you? So what had happened while she was inside? An awkward silence had settled over the two of them. Marius looked at the boy's closed face and tried to break it. About that. Ega, if you don't mind, next time we could. He didn't finish, because a glass of orange something came down out of nowhere and went over Ega from the head down. Oh no, I'm so sorry. A woman rushed in to help him. Violet, I told you not to run about. Marius was patient about it. It's nothing, madam, children run. Ega looked down at his soaked clothes. It's fine, really. Rather than apologizing, madam, help him get changed. Take that coat off and put this on. He stripped off his own outer coat and handed it over. I'll find something spare. Wait for me by the lavatory. Ega was anxious. But then I might miss Liliana. Violet's mother stepped forward and offered gently, If you're waiting for someone, I can help. My daughter has just gone in as well. Marius said, then might I trouble you? A small girl called Liliana, black curls, blue eyes. So Marius went to find dry clothes, believing it was all arranged. And at that exact moment, Violet's mother heard something odd and hurried into the lavatory to check on her daughter. The second she left her post, Liliana walked out. The two of them missed each other entirely. A passerby pointed. A little girl with black hair? Yes, one ran that way just now. Marius abandoned every shred of dignity and ran. Liliana. He cut a line through the crowd, shouting until his voice tore. The square was fuller than before. Liliana was small, and a small child in that sea of people simply could not be found. Marius was gasping, drenched in cold sweat. I should have brought Mark. I'm an idiot. Imagining I could look after 2 children at once, call in soldiers, seal every exit, search sector by sector. He had never been this frightened. Not once during the fight for the throne had he panicked like this. If anything happened to that fragile, precious child. He put a hand over his eyes. Where has she gone? This is going to drive me insane. And in the middle of that, Marius turned. Ega had his teeth clenched and the sound was coming up out of his throat anyway. Something enormous and guilty opened in Marius's chest. Ega. The boy's head came up. If you don't find Liliana, I will never forgive you. Not for the rest of my life. She was younger than him and they had never been close. And every time an adult pushed him around, Liliana was the first person to stand in front of him. An orphan raised by older cousins, permanently braced for the family to be finished with him, and underneath it all still wanting a mother and a father. Liliana was the only person alive who understood that. Beside her, he was not lonely. The tears came out of Ega and would not stop. Please find her. I can't do this without her. Marius went down and pulled the shaking boy in. This child who could tear the skin off his own knees playing and simply dust himself off and keep going. Who could take a serious scolding and not let one tear out? I promise you, I will find Liliana. It's going to be all right, so stop crying. Ega took a fistful of his coat and put his face into his shoulder. You promised. You promised me. You said you'd find her. Marius stroked the back of his neck and answered steadily. Yes, I promise. Seal the whole area. Liliana's safety comes before everything else. His eyes had gone cold and sharp. He was about to give an order that would empty the barracks when the fairground loudspeakers came on with a bright, clear voice. Attention, please. We are currently looking for a lost child. Repeating. We are looking for a lost child. Lady Liliana is looking for Ega and Ega's brother. If you can hear this, please come to Area A32 where Lady Liliana is waiting. Ega tore through the crowd with his head down. Liliana, Liliana. When he saw the shape he knew, he shouted. Liliana, Ega. His face was a mess of tears and he couldn't produce words. He scrubbed at his eyes and started scolding her through it. Where did you go? How could you leave me? Then he threw himself at her and held on and cried properly. Where were you? You were supposed to wait outside the lavatory. Can't you even use a lavatory by yourself? Liliana was too stunned to answer. Hold on, she thought. Marius stood there and sighed at both of them. Liliana, are you all right? Are you hurt anywhere? Ega was terrified. He thought he'd lost you. Liliana said quietly that she'd cried a bit too, then patted his back. Ega, the mage's warning came back to her. Never let go of your brother's hand again. Liliana raised one small hand and waved it feebly in the air. She looked guilty. Are you angry? She dropped her head. Liliana knows she was wrong. Marius said nothing and simply stood there. If this continues, my sisters will find out what happened today. She bit down on her lips, sweating. That cannot be allowed to happen, which left one option. Liliana reached out and tugged at his coat. Brother-in-law. She went red and put every ounce of sincerity she owned into it. I'm sorry. You're the most wonderful man in the world. She did the maths internally. If it gets me out of an hour-long lecture and off the thinking chair, I'll say anything. She declared it at volume. You are the handsomest, most wonderful brother-in-law alive. Liliana will reflect deeply. I was wrong. Please don't be angry. The corner of Marius's mouth twitched. And then he lost it entirely and bent double, laughing. He dropped into a crouch, opened both arms, and pulled both children into them. Why should Liliana be punished at all? Because Liliana didn't wait where she was told. Marius tightened his arms, and his voice went warm. Liliana, Ega, this is my fault. I wasn't there. I'm sorry. So he had been running all over this fairground looking for me, dragging Ega behind him. And I thought he never worried about anything. She had no idea how much he was already afraid of losing her. It's all right. We're together now, aren't we? She reached up and patted his back. Normally, an adult scolds and comforts a frightened child. She found she didn't mind this at all. It was the first time Marius had felt like someone who looked after her. Then the fireworks came open across the night sky and the sound rolled over everything. Marius took both children up onto the high wall, looking down over the festival. Liliana tipped her head back and watched the light fall. We missed the circus. But this is better anyway. She looked at Iga beside her. He was staring up at the sky and there was finally a smile on his face. They say a wish on a shooting star comes true. Falling fireworks should count. Liliana clasped both hands and shut her eyes. Please let those two make up. Let Iga and Marius be as close as real brothers. Don't let them fight again. And please protect Iga so that nothing ever hurts him again. Iga leaned in, curious. What are you doing? Eyes still shut, she said she was praying, and told him to hurry up and pray too. He stood there feeling ridiculous, and then, looking at how serious she was, he copied her. A moment later, she asked what he'd wished for. Iga opened his eyes. Secret. Miser. She pulled a face, looked down, and discovered Iga quietly reaching over and taking her hand. Liliana looked at her captured hand and blinked. Why is he holding my hand? She tried to pull free and complained that she wanted a drink of water. He gripped harder and would not let go, so she appealed to the adult. Brother-in-law, help. Marius stood against the wall with a glass in his hand, laughing so hard he couldn't stand straight. He wiped his eyes. Because the two of you are unbearable. Liliana rolled her eyes. What is he talking about? Then she sighed and gave in. Fine, let him. Moonlight over a quiet road and a carriage moving slowly across the ruts. Iga surfaced, made a small noise, and found his head resting against Marius's arm. On the other side, Liliana had been asleep for some time, stretched across the bench with her head on Marius's leg. Marius looked down and said quietly that he should sleep a bit longer. Iga woke fully and went scarlet. Iga said nothing for a long time and then found the nerve. Brother. Marius turned his head. Yes, about earlier. He kept his head down and laced his fingers together. I said some terrible things to you before. I'm sorry about that. Marius's fist closed and his eyes went hot. I'm the one who should apologize. Because of that potion, I started a war. I told myself it was for Rebecca, and how many people suffered in it. Let it end here. When you said that, you were hoping I would come to my senses at that exact moment and stop. And I had no idea what those words even meant. He put a hand over his face and the tears went down his wrist. I was too stupid to understand what you felt. I treated you like a father would. How could I have done that to you? He reached out and covered Iga's eyes with one large hand. From now on, I'll do better. It came out like a plea. Forgive me for everything I put you through. I'm sorry. For all of it. Iga pressed his lips shut and swallowed it, and his whole body shook with the effort. Marius drew his hand back and brushed the boy's cheek. So, from today, would you be willing to go on being my brother? Iga looked up with his eyes swimming. It took him a while, yes, but only this once. Marius pressed his mouth shut and tried to hold it down. In a moment like this, what would Alice do? He leaned in and pulled Iga hard against him. I think she'd do exactly this. And the second he had the child in his arms, something extraordinary opened in him, and he knew that from this day on, these arms would never once get tired. Firelight moved in the grate. Marius said it quietly. I don't know how to make things right with him. Alice asked why they had argued. Marius sat at the round table. It wasn't an argument, only one of us was wrong. Of course it can be, Alice said. She looked down, remembering that she and Liliana had not started out close either. At least you didn't give up on him the way I once gave up on Liliana. Night lay over the great estate. A month had gone by since that wedding. That woman is taking hold of the palace piece by piece, and you intend to stand and watch. The Empress's scholarship fund is running beautifully. We have to do something. But His Majesty interfered with the soul oath, didn't he? Has that woman enchanted him completely? Wood cracked in the grate. Speaking of which, they say the Empress and her youngest sister are 18 years apart. Sunlight fell into the garden, and a tea party was underway in the pavilion. Heavens. There's cinnamon in this biscuit. Do you have cinnamon in chobancha? Oh, and sugar. How marvelous. They were interrogating me about whether we have wine, and now they're overcome by cinnamon. Regina kept her face still. If Amelia were here, she'd have turned this table over and taught these people something with her fists. But this was the first tea party Alice had hosted as mistress of the house. She could not cause an incident, so she swallowed it. Regina put on a flawless smile. In that case, when you leave, I'll have some biscuits and wine packed for each of you. At home, these are ordinary things. I had no idea they counted as luxuries in the Empire. Viscountess Grace Lee set down her cup. How kind of you, though, Lady Regina. How old are you this year? Grace Lee was not from a great house, but she sat at the center of society, and everyone called her the Queen of the Drawing Room. Regina answered evenly. I'm 21. The Viscountess clapped once, and it was very loud, how absolutely perfect. She smiled brilliantly and explained, that is the perfect age to marry. Part of the reason for the Viscountess's fame was the great many apparently accidental introductions. That ended in successful marriages, so parents hoping to place their children came to her constantly. She leaned forward with her hands folded. Since you traveled all this way with Her Majesty, you must intend to settle here permanently. Regina hesitated. Not necessarily. Why ever not? Find a good man here and marry him. Surely that's the best outcome for your sister, too. Wouldn't you agree, Lady Regina? Regina answered lightly. I have no plans to marry at present. The Viscountess looked astonished. Good heavens! Chobancha may not care about social order, so perhaps it passes there. But in the Empire, when a woman is past her season and still unmarried, people say there must be something wrong with her. Alice closed her eyes and listened to the lecture in silence. The Viscountess laughed and waved a hand. Don't worry, I'll arrange it personally, trust me, and you'll live extremely comfortably here, with no scandal attached to you at all. Another lady leaned in to help. Lady Regina, if you take the Viscountess's advice, you'd meet men you would otherwise never get near. Alice tilted her head slightly, and something cold appeared at the corner of her mouth. Then her eyes opened, and what came out of them went across the table like a knife. Under the table, Regina found her sister's hand and held it. Leave it to me. Unless, of course, you already have someone in mind. Sorry? I mean, are you seeing somebody? The Viscountess snapped her fan open across half her face. Good heavens. Mind your language. Chobanchan culture differs from ours. We should be more understanding. In a place like that, seeing several men at once is presumably perfectly normal. Regina could not believe her ears. I'm seeing several men? I had no idea such a rumor existed. The Viscountess looked thoughtful. So it really is only a rumor. Regina found it genuinely funny. She put a hand to her chest and her breathing went shallow. As the person concerned, I'd like to hear the details directly. Where exactly did this rumor begin? The Viscountess closed her fan. They say you see several young noblemen at once, that some have dueled over you. Regina's eyes went wide with wonder. How strange. With my ability, I would never meet anyone casually. Your ability, the Viscountess repeated slowly. You'll have heard the rumors yourself. These things travel very fast. If I'm not mistaken, they say you've used your ability to steal other people's hearts. Is that right? The ladies rushed in to comfort her. Hearing this can only hurt you. We all know it's untrue. Of course. A sweet girl like you could never do such a thing. Quite. Regina put a hand over her mouth and laughed softly. She lowered her head, and her whole face turned sorrowful and fragile. The truth is, my ability is pitifully weak. Her eyes reddened and filled. It only works on children. On an adult, it does nothing at all. The Viscountess and every lady present froze, disbelief all over their faces. Regina lifted her head. Someone has been telling people that I seduce men. Alice gathered her in. Oh, my sweet girl, don't cry. Perhaps Regina's ability is dangerous. And precisely because of that, she was never required to swear a soul oath. The power is so weak that no restriction was considered necessary. Regina went on through the sobbing. Yes, all of it is written into the official records. My brother-in-law, forgive me. His Majesty informed the Senate personally, the day after the wedding. The Viscountess's hand closed on her fan. If the rumor were proven true, every man who ever courted Regina becomes a public fool. And if it's false, then someone in this room has committed criminal slander. Cold sweat came out on the Viscountess's forehead. They had said nothing about the Senate already knowing. End this topic immediately and change the subject. Otherwise, the consequences do not bear thinking about. Regina raised her head slowly, and her eyes had gone sharp and very deep. Perhaps, madam, you heard that rumor from someone. The Viscountess came out of her chair in alarm, trying to smooth it over. Lady Regina, it seems we have misunderstood one another. Let's leave it here. Regina cut across her, and her voice was iron. This concerns my honor. So I would like you to tell me. Someone is slandering me. The wedding was less than a year ago, and already somebody is bold enough to smear my name. At this rate, even His Majesty's authority takes the damage. The ladies watched it happen, sweating through their powder. Even the Emperor's authority is dragged into this. Alice went on stroking her sister's hair. From the moment of that wedding, we became one family. His Majesty holds Regina in the highest regard. He loves my youngest sister as though she were his own child. A rumor like this is an open insult to the royal house? Or would you say otherwise? The Viscountess and every lady at that table went white to the lips. They had all been perfectly certain that the new empress was a stupid country girl from a backwater. The opposite turned out to be true. Alice took one step forward. Her voice was level and carried an authority nobody could refuse. So, which one of you started that rumor? The girl the Emperor brought back from Chobancha was never a docile lamb. She was a lone wolf with enough force to tear all of it apart. So who wants to answer her first?